are live and we are all set for 5 hours. 5 hours of Freaky Friday woo. And of course, just before we came on air, our special guest today, Brent Thomas, had a power cut. So he'll be here to join us very, very shortly. But like I say, this is the start of something very, very special. Because every Friday the 13th here on Truth Frequency Radio, we like to do something different. Very, very different indeed. And you know, in their own right, Freaky Friday and the Paranormal Portal separately are two very, very, very good standalone shows when it comes to all things that we call woo. But something really, really special happens on a Friday the 13th, and we started this a short time ago, where we would join forces. We would combine, and to put it bluntly, Freaky Friday will go through the Paranormal Portal. And not only that, we're taking all of you with us, but only if you can promise to handle our woo, because it's going to get weird. It's going to get wacky. We're going to take the supernatural to the next level. We're going to take the paranormal to places it's probably not been in a long, long time. And Scotty Lopez and Nacy, and of course, the one, the only Brent Thomas, and later on Don Longbeard, all of us are going to raise the paranormal bar. How you doing, Scotty boy? We are here. We're live. The chat room on YouTube is looking very, very small to the point where nobody can read that. So I'll fix that. I'll get on that. We've got lots of Wookiees lining up in the Wookiee cave. We've got 5 hours in front of us. I am so rested. I feel like I've just won a rested competition in Restedville, Arizona. I don't know if there's a Restedville in Arizona, but I won the competition for being rested there. Good to go, man.
Yeah, same here. I took a nice little nap before our 5-hour extravaganza, and yeah, man, it's gonna be really, really good. I always love whenever we do these team ups with Brent and Dawn, you know, from the Paranormal Portal. This it's become a tradition. Our Friday the 13th woo extravaganza, you know, and yeah, we're gonna raise the bar, man. We're gonna take it to levels that nobody has ever taken it, and you know, we're gonna get into it all, man. We're gonna get into the paranormal. We're gonna get into the weird and wonderful world of cryptids. Maybe throw some UFOs in there. You know.
Imagine we could get a story about a
goblins.
cryptid flying a UFO out of a portal and picking up some black-eyed children.
Oh,
That's the Full House, ladies and gentlemen. If that ever happens, it's the Full House. That's what we're looking for right here. And of course, Scott, I'm coming to you from a brand new location, man. Coming to you from
from
hell. Yeah, you talk down here.
Well, I was about to say, I mean, I know that there was a heat wave going on in Scotland, but dang, you know,
yeah,
it looks a little toasty over there.
Yeah.
A little toasty, but
I've heard throughout the show I might be a test subject in a new, not quite chronovisor. It's like a thing that like opens up chronicle holes and throws me through time, and you might see me in the future. I don't know, dude. There's rumors. There's rumblings in the background. Right. So before we forget where we are, Nacy, look at me sitting there all patiently after nearly freaking me out, was whispering in my ear during the intro. I nearly jumped out the seat. I was beside myself. I thought we had Ooga Boogas on the line. We do have Ooga Boogas on the line. We've got feedback. It's away now. It's awesome. There he is. But before we get to him, Nacy, how you doing, brother?
Can you woo, woo, woo? Freaky Friday, Paranormal Portal, Friday the 13th, 5x5, sooner than later. Donnie Longbeard, Brent Thomas, Scotty Lopez, Captain Kev Baker.
Do
and
you
just
know,
little old
Nacy,
me.
do you know on another timeline he's actually called Longy Dongbeard?
Absolutely.
You like I see? He's a white. Brent got that
Absolutely.
one. Brent got that one early. I like that. Yeah. So when I
And
call
the
him
parallel to-
Lonnie on the show later, we'll all know what we're talking about, and poor Don won't have a clue, right?
No matter what we call him, he is a wonderful entity and shall be joining us soon.
Yeah, he will be.
Yes, he will. He will. But joining us right now, and let me just let the audience know here, talk about being prepared for the marathon that is ahead. You know, being an ex-military man, I appreciate somebody that turns up early. But there's early, and then there's Brent Thomas early. He messaged me about 5 minutes to 11 over here, and he said, that's me, all set. I'm thinking, wow, good man, good man. We've only got an hour and 5 minutes to go. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, time zones, something's gone wrong here. And I think, what time was it? About 1:15. It finally dawned on you, Brent.
Yeah. I
Better
was
early than late, brother. Better early than late.
like, wow, we must be running late today. Like, I went and checked the TFR schedule and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So, yeah.
Are
I
you
got it all
ready, man? Are you stoked? Are you pumped for 5 hours of woo?
I am so ready. I just am so excited to do this show. I only wish there was more Friday the 13th in a year. This year we kind of got robbed.
I think we're gonna have to find some way, some middle ground somewhere. Maybe one around Halloween or something. That would be a bit pretty cool.
I think that's
What if a
that's,
Friday?
Huh?
Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
No, I was going to say that's a phenomenal idea. I would team up with you guys every week. I would do 5 hours of this if I'm just telling you.
I tell
This
you.
is always the point, and our listeners love it on our side for sure, and on your side, and we share a bunch of listeners, so we got a real common audience.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening out there on the home of Freaky Friday and the Paranormal Portal, Truth Frequency Radio, TFRlive.com, let me give all of you a big shout out. And of course, TalkStream Live picks up the TFR stream. So a big shout out to everyone listening over there. We're also on the Kev Baker Show YouTube channel for the first 3 hours today. And then we'll jump on over through into the Paranormal Portal YouTube channel with Brent Thomas. And I'm telling you, this is going to blow your mind. You need your big boy paranormal pants on, folks, because this is going to
Or
go
girl.
deep. Oh, well, hey, listen. Big boy pants. We're not going to get into genders. We've done that before the show. I'm getting highly triggered by it all today. So I'm going to head on over to the chat room. Hopefully nobody's declared their preferred pronouns in there, or that might tip me over the edge. Don't even think about it, listeners. Don't do that. Don't do it to me. So first and foremost, well, not first and foremost, but first and creepy, still me and Sophia. The rumours are semi-true. But then let's get into the hardcore Wookiees. And I see some brilliant names in here, guys. Brilliant. We have got BAM 420. Every day it's 420, I've heard. So Jimmy Jeans tells me. We have got Seagraves. Really should have a drum roll for this. Look, I might have a back sheet.
Jittering and jittering.
Yeah, jiggering and jiggering. It's Billy Ray Valentine, ladies and gentlemen. Our very own Billy Ray. So a big shout out to him over there. We were having a good laugh over on Twitter today, weren't we, Billy? Yes, indeed. Less said about that, the better. All one is in the chat room. We've got Psycho Dave, 3, 2, 1. Then he goes totally nuts. We've got Armand, Andrea, good to see you, all the way from New Zealand. Wow. Daryl. Some guy called Brent Thomas. You see, you can hang out with the hosts over at tfrlive.com/chat. We've got Wise Wolf Radio in there as well. Timid Local, Brave Local, and who knows who else, what else. is listening to us out there, because we know we go beyond the veil here on Truth Frequency Radio. You like how I done that? Pretty cool.
Ooh, that was
So
slick.
you
Yeah.
like that? You like it? So listen, Brent, what have you been up to in the world of woo since we last teamed up, brother? What's been going on through the portal?
Well, we've been doing some conferences. Don and I went over to 2 conferences this year, both in July, and had a great time. We went to Medellin Falls for a Bigfoot festival there, and then we went to Squatch Fest. Medellin Falls is in Washington State, and Squatch Fest is also in Washington State, just north of Portland. So we covered the state of Washington pretty hard this year, but we had a great time. I met so many of the faces of the community, and just wonderful people. And you'd never know that, because everybody always talks about, oh, the Bigfoot community is so cutthroat, and everybody, and these are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Both the celebrities and the people attending, they were all really cool, really welcoming to Don and I, and we had a blast. Got to talk to people that are on my bucket list personally. Got to talk to Bob Gimlin, which to me was really like one of the feathers in my hat for having a show. It's like, oh, that's so neat to sit down with him and have a chat. And we did a podcast episode with him and had a blast. But it was just so many cool people. We've had a lot of fun. It's been a really busy summer, and we got a busy fall shaping up too. But no more conferences that are on the radar. I mean, if it could change at any time, but currently it looks like that's going to be it for our conference season. But now we're just trying to rope together some investigations to do some on-site investigations. And hopefully we'll tie some of those in before the year is up too.
You're right about the conference experience. I remember going to the Scottish UFO and Paranormal conference, and it was fantastic to meet people that are into all of these topics that we're into here. The only thing I didn't really like is, because we've got a podcast, people tend to want to talk to you, and they think you're kind of going to be some kind of, I don't know, they expect something maybe that they don't get. And I'm just there to enjoy the woo, just like anyone else, Brent. I don't know if you're like that way. I would rather just be an audience member than people, oh, you've got your own show, and nah.
Yeah. It was weird to me, especially at Medellin Falls, to have people recognize me. That was the weirdest thing. It's like, I'm just an idiot with a microphone, in my home studio doing this. But then it just kind of, I don't know, it gives it such a different spin when you're out there and you're meeting the people that are listening to you. And it's really humbling and amazing, but it's also kind of a different world,
Big time. And before I unleash the guys on you, you mentioned they're potentially going out and doing some investigations. Another thing that I love about Brent, ladies and gentlemen, is that he literally has boots on the ground when he can. A lot of us just like to talk about these things. I mean, I've been to Boleskine House, but I'd hardly call that an investigation. Whereas, Brent, I know you've been out there, you do your bit. Where are you planning on looking into? Is there anywhere in particular, or is it just if you can get out, you'll go?
Well, I'd like to get into, there's an old hospital in Idaho that's abandoned, and I'd like to get in there. I'm working on trying to get permission for us to get in there. We've had talks between us about even trying to go to the Villisca Axe Murder House, and I don't know if that's going to shape up this year, but that's on our bucket list for this. But we're also going to do at least one, possibly two Bigfoot research investigations, where we go into a hotspot area and try to look for some kind of evidence. But at any rate, just get out there and see what we can experience.
Okay, guys, you can have at them for now. I've got so many questions ready for Brent, topics we can get into, but Scotty, I'll pass it on to you, bro.
I mean, that's cool. I was seeing you guys, kind of post some of your stuff from the conference on Facebook, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I would like to actually, manage to get out to one of them conferences sometime and, mingle with everyone out there that, like I said, it seems like it's it's cool whenever you can hang out with a bunch of people that are into the same sort of woo, I guess you could say, and get to know people within that community and stuff. So that was pretty cool, and it just shows that there's still, big interest in the whole Sasquatch Bigfoot thing. People still want to try to get to the bottom of it and figure out what's going on. So yeah, that's cool. It's cool, man.
I'll tell you this, though. You know what I'm always surprised at? And I think that every category of the paranormal has some incredible interest levels. And oftentimes people overlap, like they're into more than one thing. Like it might be Bigfoot and UFOs. It might be ghost hunting and UFOs. It could be some cross. Like for me, I'm into all of it. But what I can tell you, though, that I'm always amazed at is that I think the most tenacious and aggressively interested people are the Bigfoot audiences. The people that are into that are just have this ravenous appetite. They want to know experiences. They want to know what people are researching, and they plug themselves into as much information as they can. So many groups and stuff, and I find that really cool. Like the people that are into Bigfoot, they are really after that information. Like it really, they're very motivated. And I'm not taking anything away from any other group, but I just am always amazed. Even when we do that for topics on the portal, the Bigfoot people that show up for the shows and check them out is just, it's almost on a 2-to-1 ratio.
And you know what I think part of that is, or why that is because I think the Bigfoot thing, the whole topic of just, Bigfoot, Sasquatch in general, it seems to be the thing that it almost seems like it's obtainable. Like there's enough evidence there, like physical evidence and tangible evidence that people have come across, that it seems like one of these things that eventually, we may be able to figure it out. Or
right.
come to some kind of a conclusion, as opposed to some of this more, and like you said, it's not taking away from any of the other topics like UFOs or the paranormal or something like that. But it just seems like the whole Bigfoot thing, it just like there's kind of this thread of hard evidence. You got the foot castings, you've got the structures, that are built out there in the woods, where they're, like crossing sticks and, all of that stuff that people have witnessed and seen. And it's not just, it's a wide variety of people who have experienced this stuff. So I think that's part of why people are so dedicated, because it's almost like within reach. It's almost in reach. It's like we're almost there, but we're just not quite there yet. So I think that's why there's such a ravenous sort of interest in it.
You know what I think? I think also, and that brings up a great point. And I think you're right. It just kind of occurred to me as well that maybe it's also because of all of the woo. For a lot of people that are really anchored in, into the world, like, there's sportsmen, there's fishermen, there's all these people, outdoorsmen, hikers, campers, they've all probably experienced something weird, but it doesn't seem as far out there to think maybe there is this big primate or hominid out there wandering around. Maybe that's more to them. It's more plausible, and it makes sense in the natural world. Whereas it does take a little more to get your head around the idea that people are traveling, millions of light years to get here, or that there's these, these spiritual bodies running around, raising hell sometimes. You know what I mean? So maybe that's the most accessible one too. That's a good point.
Plus, you can add to that. I mean, we're always finding new species, guys, right? Albeit usually insect life and things. But I think what you said there, probably people find it one of the more grounded. And I don't want to call it a conspiracy, because it's not a conspiracy. But it's maybe one of the more socially acceptable things to admit in public, as opposed to going full, UFOs coming from Andromeda or blue chickens and all that kind of stuff, where it does go into. But, another one, maybe it's just because of where I am, but I think Nessie's another one like the Bigfoot. Like, people don't kind of roll their eyes too much. It's not so much of a stretch for somebody to say, well, I think there might be something there, you know? Because it's
Right.
an ongoing kind of sightings, whether you believe all of them or whether all of them are genuine. Again, it's one of the more accessible topics to kind of speak about if you're getting into these subjects, right?
Right.
Oh, if I may humbly add from the fourth dimension, that the full spectrum of the paranormal or the metaphysical is going to have such an expand that over the thousands of accounts or experiences of Bigfoot or Nessie or UFOs or the list that goes on and on and on, you'll have that percentage of those that have I need attention, as Brent says it, I need attention disease. And then the minuscule of it, you know, if only 5% of all of these experiences that are shared are true, then to me, logically, it has to be there. And then it's like, do the powers that should not be want us to go any further away from the box they tried to trap us within? Because if we think outside the box and we think that anything and everything is plausible, then it's unlimitless what we could actually do as a species.
Yeah, I mean, no, the you know, and it's interesting because also like you said, like the Bigfoot topic, right? It's easy to wrap your head around it because, you know, I would say entry level, you go, okay, well, it's plausible that there's an undiscovered species out there, right? But then you look more into it and you start going down the rabbit hole, and then you're like, okay, maybe it's more than just an undiscovered species, because why haven't we found any remains, you know, or any bones or anything like that? And then it gets even more interesting as you look into it. And then you start, okay, are we talking about some kind of interdimensional being of some kind? That's, you know, you know what I mean? So it provides an easy, I guess you could say, quote unquote, logical anchor point for people to get it, you know, to get into at entry level. But then as they start going down the rabbit hole, it just kind of gets more and more bizarre, you know, and you know, so it's fascinating. It's one of the, it's always going to be one of those fascinating topics that I don't think will ever really die out, and people will always be, they'll always be chasing the Squatch, man. They'll always be chasing them.
But that did actually surprise me, though. I mean, when I found that out, because you know, everybody and their brother knows somebody that's had a ghost story, like as a ghost experience. They've, you know, everybody's got these yarns. So I was totally expecting that would be the big one, because most people at least can relate to it, and it's been a part of our culture forever. But you know, the Bigfoot one is definitely the hands down winner on ours. Now, I'm not saying that's. I'm just saying that's true for our metrics, you know, that I can observe for our show. But, you know, I know all of these topics are absolutely huge. And I think it's that people love that it's not all figured out. I think that's the romance of it, is that, I don't know, who wants to live in a world where everything's labeled and categorized and shelved and in the book and closed, and, you know, it's all known. Well, I think people like the idea of living in a world of mystery and discovery, you know?
Yeah, because we're a
Hold that thought.
That's where we're going.
Come and discover some more after the break.
There we go, gents. There we go. Already one segment down. I don't like how when you hang up on somebody, you hang up on the studio and it says you kicked them out the call. That's not right. Only put them to the side and kick them out the call. That'd be a bit rude, you know. Come back in 3 minutes. So, Brent, any good guests or any big shows lining up in the near future, dude?
Oh, we just did one with Jim Bear King, which was fun. There's more coming up. We're going to be talking to Ken Gerhard in the near future. Of course, he's a TV personality, cryptozoologist, and pretty prolific author of 40 topics. And yeah, that's going to be a fun one. I've got a lot of them kind of nebulously out there.
On his podcast.
Yeah, the podcast or the YouTube. So for us, a lot of channels like they do a YouTube and then it's also a podcast, or they call it their podcast. But for us, the YouTube is just the live stream for, and sometimes we take YouTube episodes and make them into podcasts. But the podcast for us is just a whole different show 95% of the time, and it's audio only. And it's out there on Spotify, Pandora, all the major platforms, iHeart, iTunes. But yeah, I mean, that's the one good thing about these conferences, and I gotta recommend them to anybody that wants to, get involved in the communities. Is you really get a chance to meet the people and to make connections, and that was what it was for us for sure. We really made a lot of incredible connections, and that was a lot of fun.
We should have a conference in Scotty's town. And then we can go to that graveyard.
Ooh, there you
go to Stoll.
Yeah, bring Brent and Donnie down.
Absolutely.
And then we do a live feed with Kev Baker.
Oh, no, I don't even want to be in that place remotely. I'll just wait for you guys to come back and tell me about it. Thanks.
Well, I'll just cut open a portal then, and you'll just step through.
Oh, that's even worse than being there remotely.
Like I said, my brother might be taking a trip to Stoll on Halloween.
Nice,
we'll see,
man.
We'll see. Decides to do it.
How far is it from you?
It's only like 15 minutes away. Like not even that. It's a very, very short drive. It's between where I live and Lawrence, Kansas, and so it's not that far. Yeah. But like I said, the locals aren't very friendly, and it is private property, so it's like you go at your own risk kind of thing.
Ooh.
And
I'd reach out to him.
Sounds like Village of the Damned or something, man. The Hills of Eyes.
Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about it later, again, and refresh
because
everybody.
If you
on
talk about it before 2 a.m, you'll turn into a pumpkin. It's like one of those places. It's seriously creepy. No, I'm only laughing and joking because it's one of the few places where you can point to where, like, a world-renowned leader, dignitary, i.e. the Pope. The Pope. I mean, come on, we'll talk about the Vatican. If he's not willing to fly over a place, that makes it interesting to me. That's all I'm saying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
That makes it stand out, really. I mean, that's a claim to fame.
The Pope specifically requested that his plane fly around that because he said, "Nah, that's."
Don't worry, boys. I'm watching the clock.
Kev, have you ever been into a place where you instantly got that feeling of I should be here?
Yes, I have. Hold on. Here we go.
15 seconds.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Second part of today's Freaky Friday right here on your number one network, www.tfrlive.com, the home of both Freaky Friday and the Paranormal Portal, and about 31 other shows. But tonight we join forces because it's Friday the 13th. Well, technically it's Saturday the 14th over in the UK now, but hey, that's the joys of living on a hemorrhoid-shaped planet, ladies and gentlemen. Time zones, they're pesky, so they are. So Nacy was asking me, just as we were coming back from the break, is there anywhere I've ever walked into where I get that creepy feeling, that chill on the back of the neck, the spidey senses, your guardian angels, everything screaming at you to get out of there? Yes, I have, Nacy. Yes, I have. And it was Boleskine House. Shouldn't surprise anyone there. If I'd listened to my belly, my gut feeling, even the journey to that place, I'd have turned round. But I didn't. I'm telling you, that just shows that there is a kind of sixth sense in all of us. It's as if we do have some kind of internal, invisible woometer that when we start getting close to these paranormal phenomena, whether it's cryptids, hauntings, something out there that's out of the ordinary, instinctually, I think we do know. Now, some people might be able to pick up on that more than others, to the point where some people can communicate with these things that give us these feelings. So, yeah, to answer your question, Nacy, I definitely have had that feeling. And listen, if anyone out there's thinking, maybe it was that time, maybe once, no, you would know. When you get that feeling, you know that there's no replicating it, that there's no going back there, unless you're thrown into another type of situation where that's about to kick off. But Nacy, what about you, man? Have you been in there? Have you had the feeling? He's had the feeling to the point of he can't talk to us anymore.
My adaptive program, the volume is very low on it and sharing where I'm at, and so I accidentally swiped over the unmute button, so I apologize. But yeah, I've had a few occurrences of that pit in my stomach just saying, this isn't where you should be, or just that like scared. I shared a couple. The one that comes to mind right away is in the barracks when I was going through boot camp. There was a floor that when I was walking perimeter, and it was the third floor on the far end of the barracks that was empty. And I walked through that barracks, and something made me walk briskly through that barracks. And when I was passing the bathroom, I was like almost at a run and got through that barracks. And now I'm getting goosebumps just remembering it and stuff. But then I find out that a cadet killed themselves in the bathroom.
Ooh. Thanks.
And so, and I've had, as we've shared many times in the past, and actually Brent is really where I have cut a lot of teeth, so to say, being on the air, because I used to be a frequent caller, if not a guest, every now and then since Brent was on the paranormal. I think we're about to go, or you're about to go 6 years now, right, Brent?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can only imagine the number of thousands of shows that are there, and Brent's podcast also, where you can find him. But have you had that experience, sir?
Yeah, I have. There's been a few times. One time, and the problem with those experiences is you don't always know why. On one time I had an experience like I didn't want to be there. I had everything within me was screaming, "Get the hell out!" And it wasn't. I don't even know if it was paranormal in relation, but it was an experience that I had where I was living where I am now in the north tip of Idaho. And an old friend of mine was out of town, and his wife and little baby child were alone up at their mountain cabin. And she calls me, and she says, "I don't know what's going on." They had a German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd was barking nonstop, would not stop, just going nuts. And this is going on for like half an hour straight. Now, he would bark from time to time, but he would always settle down. But this time he was going nuts. Something was going on up there, and she's up there alone with a small child. And so she said, "Can you come up?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I get in my car, I go up there. And I get out of my car when I arrive, and it where they lived, it was like in a mountain valley. It's the same place I saw the UFO, but before they moved in. But where they lived, there's nothing there. There's no other real dwellings. There's cabins, seasonal cabins, but this is in, I think it was still like a warmer part of spring, but other people hadn't come into the valley yet. It was just them. So I'm up there. They're inside the house. I never even went inside the house. I just looked around outside the house. I found the dog. He quit barking once I was there and walking around with him. But once he quit barking, there was not a sound. Now, every time I've ever been up at this house, there's all kinds of sounds. There's wind through the trees. There's crickets. There's, like frogs quirking and whatever the noise they make is called. Quirking. I don't know. It is that now. But anyway,
they've all turned gay according to Alex Jones, so it's okay.
But even the crickets were dead silent. And that's the part that really struck me. It's like, crickets are stupid little things, right? They just know to eat and survive. But something was going on that even they shut up. It was just dead silent. And I'm walking around and I felt the weight of something just sitting out there in the darkness in the forest watching me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a grizzly that had come in close to the property, or because this is grizzly country, or if it was a mountain lion, or what the hell it was, or was it a Bigfoot? I don't know. It could have been any or all of them, but it was like nature was just holding its breath, and it was the creepiest feeling. I wasn't armed or anything. I just grabbed a big stick and was using it like a walking stick, and I'm walking around, and I kept walking around the house just making sure everything was okay. And then it must have been about 10 minutes of this dead silence. Didn't hear anything moving, didn't hear anything. But then it was like something released. And suddenly crickets started chirping. And then the frogs started joining in, and then the sound came back. But it was that deadly silence that just had me walking on a razor's edge, just knowing I don't know what's about to happen. I'm in this totally weird space. Something is causing everything to shut the hell up. And I was absolutely vulnerable, but I figured, well, I had the dog, and whatever this big stick's going to do, at least it's, I figured the dog would let me know if it was going to get really, really bad. But just suddenly the sounds came back. So whatever it was there, and then moved on. But it's that unknown when you're in this cloak of blackness with forest trees all around you, and you can't see anything, and you don't know what the hell's there. But something's definitely there, because even the crickets know not to make any noise. So to me, that was one of the most profound moments of I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. But, I couldn't leave because it's like a woman and a child,
But there's
so
something different about in the forest, though.
Yeah.
I only really appreciated it more so when I joined the military. And even at that point, I wasn't ever really truly alone. We talk about the forest a lot, Scott, Nacy as well. I mean, we talk about how it's literally like a living entity, right? It's its own kind of magical world in a way. And there's something about that whole atmosphere as well. And when you start to hear things quietening down, like you said there, Brent, I mean, that's ominous time to me. Right? Scott, you're nodding away there. I can see you. It's you can even get the goosebumps going when you put yourself in that kind of mindset, that situation,
Yeah.
It's interesting, listening to Brent's experience there. I mean, for everything to just go quiet, even the crickets, it makes me think about, I mean, I'm not going to say it was a Bigfoot or something he experienced out there, but it does make me think of, a lot of the talk about Bigfoot using, what was it, like infrasound, like a low, and maybe putting off some kind of an energetic vibe that all of the living creatures around, maybe tap into or feel, and they just kind of go quiet.
So 1 second it was all.
Yeah.
And then
I was dead.
And then
when I arrived, it was dead. But I'll tell you this: I really feel I got a couple extra punches on my man card that night, which was nice, because it's like I had to stick it out.
Definitely a lot of that going on as well, man. You see, you never even considered it could have been a werewolf, you fool. You weren't prepared, Brent. You see, it could have been so many other things, you see. You can't go in there half prepared, Brent. Come on, man.
I know. It's a hell of an experience, though. I mean, I guess the big part was the crickets going quiet. That really got me. It's like,
yeah,
what in the hell makes the crickets stop doing that? I mean, like all of them around the whole area. It wasn't like just a few of them near me. It was like the whole forest just went dead. So whatever it was, and Scotty, you hit on something there, because that comes up. That comes up all the time in Bigfoot reports. That people that have experiences, they say they'll be walking through the forest, everything is fine, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, it's like a curtain descends. It's a curtain of dread. And I don't know what it is, how they're able to do that, but these creatures, and I'm sure it's true for the dogman as well, but they seem to be able to just turn it on like a switch, and everything knows to just go silent. Like nothing wants to be the thing to make the noise.
Apologies. I thought I was muted. Apologies.
But that's something that people do experience, all the time. Comes up in the reports, and then usually that's the precursor to, and then it stepped out, or and then I saw the eyes, and then and then this tree broke, and all these other things. But that feeling, and it makes you wonder: is that them doing something, or is that some kind of latent ability that's in us, some kind of old something that we use to climb up the ladder of to the higher parts of the food chain, that we have this other sense of that things might be after us.
I think it could be a combination of both, right? Like it's putting something out, and it knows that it's triggering that fear vibe or whatever in you. I mean, because obviously all of the other animals and creatures feel that fear vibe as well, and they go silent. But I do think we have that ability as well. I mean, that's what our gut feeling is. It's basically our sixth sense to where we're picking up on energies around us, and we're picking up on subtle things that are alerting us that, danger, Will Robinson, yeah. And as far as like my experience with any of that, like being in a place where I'm like, I get that feeling. I can only think of one place that gave me that feeling, and it was a house we used to live in when I was really, really young, like around 5 or 6 years old, when we lived in Texas. And that was the only time that I can say I truly had some kind of I would say like a terrifying paranormal sort of experience. Mm-hmm. But I never felt comfortable in that house, and I always felt just the feeling of dread, in that place. So yeah, I mean, when we lived in that house, my mom had went to the store. She was just going to be right back, and there was actually a friend there that was watching me. They were like in the other room watching TV, and I was just kind of sitting there, and all of a sudden it was just this oppressive feeling of dread and absolute fear and terror that just overwhelmed me. Wow. And like I started freaking out, and I started like, I'm like, what, 5, 6 years old, and I started screaming for my mom and all of that stuff. But what was weird is I was screaming and calling out, and just hysterical, and this person that was there watching me didn't even hear me, never heard it the whole time. It was almost like my screams were muted or muffled in some strange way. And I remember I was trying to push my wheelchair to the door and get out of the house. I wanted to leave. I wanted to get out. And by the time I got there, and my mom came in, and she saw I was all hysterical. And she was like, "Oh, what the hell's wrong with you? What's going on?" And I was just freaking out. And my mom went in there and was like, "Hey, you didn't hear him scream?" They're like, "No, I didn't hear nothing. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything." Wow. And that's the only like experience I've really that I can say I've really had that stuck with me, you know, and I still remember it to this day. You know, then later on we find out that you know, there was somebody had taken their own life in the garage, you know, of that place, and just, you know, it was like, huh, you know. But I always had that feeling in that place, like I never felt comfortable in that house. So that was my experience with that. But other than that, I don't think I've really ever been to a place or whatever since then where I'm like have that feeling of I needed to get out or anything like that. But very, very crazy, very crazy. Yeah, still to this day, very ingrained in my memory.
Yeah. Like a mental tattoo, eh?
Yeah.
So, Brent, if there was any kind of famous location, I'm thinking Amityville Horror, places like this, what would be on your bucket list, man? What would be the place if you had no limitations, money wasn't a problem, you know, you had all the team, all the kit, you could get anywhere? Where would you like to go and spend a weekend on paranormal lockdown?
I don't know. That's a good question, because there's a lot of them. There's like, you know, Penhurst Asylum, Allegheny Asylum. There's
I think an asylum or a prison. If you're going to do the weekend, I think a location like that, something expansive, right?
Yeah, like Alcatraz or something. You know, if you could get those places to yourself with a team of people, I think that there'd be a great opportunity to, you know, have some pretty incredible experiences. But, you know, the thing with like the ghostly investigating that's, you know, it's always on my mind is that, of course, even seasoned investigators talk about how they drag things home with them. You know, I think Zach Baggins said that he got dragged out of his own bed one night by some unseen hands. And I think even Aaron Goodwin on Ghost Adventures had something pretty dark he was dealing with for a while. So I think that's the other side of it, right? Is I love the idea of investigating and doing you know, spiritual investigation like that, but at the same time, I'm like, I really don't want to bring something home from me and my family to deal with, you know. That's the other side of it. But we've investigated like the Coloma ghost town in at the top of a mountain near Missoula, Montana, and that was really cool. That was really neat. We used like a portal configuration, much like Steve Huff's portal device that, you know, uses a sound bank of like syllables and stuff. And the idea is that spirits can utilize a method called stochastic resonance, where they can take existing noise like white noise and change it to create words and stuff. Now, the coolest thing in those experiences was that running this database, after a while, you get used to the things that should be on it. You know, like you get used to the sounds and the tones that should be on it. Now, several times during that investigation, last year, when Don was there with me, and the time before that when I was just there it was just me, myself, and Dan Pruitt alone on this mountain in this ghost town. No power, no people, no help. I mean, it was really pretty incredible. But when you're utilizing those databases, I know there's a lot of people that say, you know, whatever, it's just you know, it's a function of mechanics or whatever. But when you get used to the sounds that should be on there and you hear something that shouldn't be, I mean, it's like night and day. So like we were in this location and I, you know, assuming it's an old mining community, so there's probably a lot of things going on up there. Most of the cabins are absolutely dilapidated and in the ground, but there's a few that are partially there still. But we got, you know, and it's the sound bank is literally just these like two voices, a man and a woman, making sounds like, you know, and they throw just out these syllables of words. But then you get a whole sentence come through, and it's like, well, that shouldn't have happened. And then I got a woman crying come through that, and that shouldn't have happened. Got a man screaming one time when we were investigating this abandoned hunting cabin right near there, and another one where it sounded like a guy going bang, bang, like he was taking his hand and looking at you going bang, bang, and that's not part of the database. And so it was really pretty incredible. And the physical sensations are really intense too. So like, when you feel that coldness come on you, or you feel like there was taps, people were getting taps, like somebody poked them in the shoulder and stuff. So, but I like the idea of doing that kind of investigating, and I've enjoyed it a lot, but I'm always kind of cognizant of the the other side of it. It's like, well, am I going to bring something home? Am I, in my quest to do this, really being disrespectful too? That's something I always think about, because if they are earthbound spirits, are they really working through stuff? And then you get a people parade in there going, hey, do a somersault. Hey, move that. You got to think, what would it be like if people came into your house and started telling you to, move your couch and vacuum that and dust this, and how would that feel? It'd probably be pretty put off by it. And so I think, well, are these earthbound spirits? Do they resent that?
Don't do it, Brent. Don't do it, Brent. I can feel the woke brigade already. They've got a new game in town. They're gonna start saying ghosts never consented to being investigated. We've been disrespectful. We treat them like our slaves, So don't do it. The wokies will grab onto this.
No, I mean, they obviously love it because they need the attention. That's what I was going to say.
There you go. Nice and inclusive. See.
Thanks.
A place that I would have wanted to go and investigate, but they've demolished it, and it was one of the more notorious asylums here in the U.S., and it was located right here in Topeka, the Topeka State Hospital. And I mean, you just take a look at the place and you can just tell that it has a pretty crazy history, as most asylums here in the U.S. have. And I kind of dropped that right there so you can get a look at what it looks like. But, it just has that look, man. And, but, because everybody's been going in there and investigating and poking around and all of that, most of it's been demolished. Yeah. But, I've heard a lot of stories about, people going in there, investigating. I had some friends that were little amateur ghost investigators and stuff, and they went in there and they were like, dude, this place is wild, absolutely wild. So and it's crazy. We have these locations just pockmarked all across the United States. We're such a big country that these locations are just everywhere. And then, when it comes to these asylums and stuff, it's just the horrific things that occurred in them, because essentially a lot of these people were used as guinea pigs and, mistreated, and, very, very horrible things happened to them. And, a lot of the people that were in Topeka State Hospital they didn't even have documentation. It was almost like they didn't exist. Yeah, it was like, so I think it would have been, if I had the chance to go somewhere and do an investigation, I would have liked to go there. I mean, there is still some of the structure still left, and people still say, you go out there, it's still weird and a lot of stuff's going on, but to actually go in
not
there.
as weird of what happens after the break.
There we go. 1 hour down. 1 hour down. 4 hours to go. And I'll tell you what, that's been a quick hour, guys. Very quick hour. Very quick hour. And I didn't mean I didn't mean to hit you all with my new soundboard in the background. I honestly didn't, but it was good timing. We'll check. Yes, I've got my
My
levels
mobile
right now.
device totally died.
Have you got a soundboard as well, Brent?
I do. I got
Nice.
the Rode Procaster, and it's got all these sound effects built in. It's like magic.
Focus, pocus. Prestidigitation.
I like it. I like it. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. All the mod cons, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you what, man. Only 138 people here to watch this. It's an absolute crime. A YouTube crime. We're the most underviewed paranormal, supernatural, crazy, weird show in the world. I'm telling you. I'm reliably informed in another universe. We've got 1,380 viewers right now, but we're also talking about gardening, so it's ups and downs, guys. It all balances out, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
see, yeah. So when we come back after the break, Brent, I want to pick your brain about. I don't know how do you put it? Can you call something your favorite cryptid? I don't know. The one that intrigues me most recently. I'll hit you with it after the break. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. I'll keep it for there. I'll surprise you with it. We've been doing a lot of shows with Lon Strickler and Stan Gordon. So those two on one show, I kind of laugh and I joke about it, but it's a pinch yourself kind of moment as well. Because when you team those two guys up, we worked it out. You're talking about over 100 years of investigations. All the
my
way
God.
back to the Kecksburg UFO in the 60s, you know?
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
exactly, that's like wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they've both been picking up on reports of a similar entity. So I'm going to get your thoughts about it after the break. You're going to have heard of it, dude. I've heard you talking about it. It's all good. I'm not going to trip you up or anything.
All right. Sounds good.
Speaking of Lon Strickler, he got a shout out, and his story was picked up by Mysterious Universe.
There
one of
you
his
go.
stories.
There you go. No
Yeah.
surprise, dude. No surprise. The big man.
Yeah. I was like, nice.
He's really deeply investigating the O'Hare Mothman / flying humanoid thing. And you know, I thought it went back to like 2017 when we started talking about it, Scotty, when they were having that flap in Chicago, but it actually goes back beyond that. It's been ongoing for a while.
Yeah.
And the last story was they actually sent the TSA out to the perimeter of the actual airport. I cracked the joke, what were they going to do, body scan them? But nobody really got it. So, but no, they actually sent them as like what kind of response that is to anything. I don't quite know. But it
Now I'm
shows you
going
that
to
there's something
pad
going
you
on there.
down with the back of my hand.
Exactly. And is it a Mothman or is it a Mothman?
Ma'am.
Exactly. You see, you got to get it
You
right,
know,
boys.
in that area there in Wisconsin, Michigan, there are many myths of underground caves that go all over the place. My ancestors talk about it, and you know, I've shared that before about
Here we go,
some
boys.
things you're not
Sorry.
supposed to talk about. You're not
Sorry,
supposed to
boys.
mention them.
Here we go. And just like that, we move into hour number 2 on Freaky Friday. Not that one. Not that one. Definitely not that one, right? That. Oh, they've gone quiet. What comes next? Now, Brent, if you'd heard that in the forest that day, you would have rightly freaked out, I would imagine, okay? But before we get going again, let me just remind everyone out there, if you're just tuning in, thank you. But we're doing something extra special this Freaky Friday, or Strange Saturday as it is now in the UK. We are going through the Paranormal Portal. So when you're used to hearing us handing over the chalice of woo, or we're telling people that we'll take you through the Paranormal Portal, go and join Brent. Tonight, it's all one big woo extravaganza for all of you. So share it out on social media. We've still got 4 hours. We've barely warmed up here. So get everyone you know over here, get them into the woo, because the woo, ladies and gentlemen, is what will bring people back together. And we are making woo great again right here on Truth Frequency Radio. Yes, we are. And helping us do that, we've got Nacy, we've got Scotty Lopez, and the man of the moment, because he's our very special guest in these first 3 hours, is one of my favourite paranormal hosts, not just on the network, but over on YouTube. He's got his own podcast as well. It's Brent Thomas. And if you aren't checking him out by now, at the end of this show, I would imagine he's going to become a firm favourite with all of you. So, Brent, I was teasing you. I was, dare I say, just warming up the tip during the break. And I was saying we were about to go into the land of cryptids. Yes, indeed. And one of the classification of cryptid, that's a good way of putting it, a very scientific way, that's really caught my attention, and I can't quite wrap my head around it. It gives me a icky feeling that some other cryptids don't, and it's the pale, white, gaunt-looking humanoids. Sometimes they're down on all fours. There's reports of some of them, their knees bend the wrong way. They're just, you're already nodding. You know what I'm talking about. Mothman is red eyes. Invariably, we're talking about red, glowing, yellow, glowing eyes with this entity.
Mm-hmm.
What say you to these pale, white crawlers?
A lot of people are referring to them as rakes. I think that's a newer name for an older phenomena. Like the debunkers would like to say, well, it's a creepypasta people invented, and it's called the rake that just appeared at this time on this thread, and that's where it came from. Well, no, there's been ghouls, which are allegedly these pasty, white, wiry, creepy looking people in our histories for hundreds of years. And I don't, they're really strange. I had some thoughts about this, and I don't know if they are indeed the same thing or not, but it seems to me that they probably are. They're probably the same thing as what people have always called ghouls. Now, it makes what I thought was kind of interesting. This is just a brain spasm I had during one of the shows. But because ghouls were always reported as in cemeteries, being seen in cemeteries and doing what? They're feasting on corpses. And I'm like, well, obviously they're not still being seen that way. And then it occurred to me, at what point did we start embalming, And did that change the food source for these things? Could that be why they're no longer digging around cemeteries and digging up bodies and feasting on, body parts, but could that have forced them into another lifestyle? And I don't know, man, they are creepy. They're weird. Some people report them being human size. Some people say they're 3 feet, 4 feet, more diminutive, but whatever they are, they seem to be incredibly wiry, somewhat aggressive, and creepy as hell. Whatever they are.
There's I don't know, there's something very disturbing about all of this. We were talking about this on just the recent Warrior mode. Something even makes me wonder, and again, it's just a thought, whether they come out from underground. Again, me and Nacy, I'm having my thinking steered by the recent books that we've both listened to by Scott Sigler, right? And it deals with entities that live underground. They end up very peely-wally. They've got glowing yellowish eyes to help them see in the very dark conditions. It ticks every box when you look at this abomination that's on the screen right now. And at the same time, I like what you're saying there with the whole ghoul aspect as well, Brent. And I think these things, there's nothing new about them. I think they go back a long, long time. I'd like to really track down when the first potential kind of writings about something similar to this may have been seen. Probably in mythology somewhere we'll find something. But I don't know, there's just something, Scotty, that is highly uncomfortable about all of it, and I don't know what it is, man.
Yeah, and like Brent said, I mean, the rake, it's just a modern name put on what I believe is a very old phenomenon, or a creature, if you will, or entity, I guess you could say. And it makes you think of like, I always think of like Schmeagol, right, from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, man.
Right. And this pale, gaunt, sort of bony, just basically like flesh on bone kind of entity. But yeah, I mean, I think they probably do dwell underground. I mean, it would check all of the boxes, right, of some kind of an underground dwelling. No, the sun's not hitting it, so it's going to have that pale look. Probably really big eyes, so it can see in the dark and all of that. And it probably only, comes out at night.
You think about what we've seen recently, Scott, in parts of the world where tourists went away, and the local wildlife that was used to getting fed off the tourists and things, they all started to take over villages, and they were coming into urban locations. And it makes you wonder if maybe there's something, whatever the food source that these things had, it makes you wonder if they're having now to come out. And what was even weirder the other night was that Stan Gordon mentioned that it's okay, like, you get reports of seeing whatever cryptid it is, but people are now saying it's as if this entity here, on a number of occasions, it's like it's noticed that it's been seen. It's like it's consciously, like, either backed off or interacted with the actual witnesser. Something's changing, something's weirder is starting to kick in,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Brent also made a good point about the fact that we've started embalming bodies, and that's a fairly recent sort of thing that we've done in our history. I mean, because all throughout human history, we've never embalmed bodies, and this has only started taking place late 19th century, something like that, 20th century. I mean, I don't know when embalming first really started, but I mean, it's a very recent thing in human history. So, if these things, I guess we could call them ghouls, because it does fall, I would say, fall under that category. If that's what their food source was, and then all of a sudden you've added a chemical, right, formaldehyde, that it can't consume, then it's gonna find another source of food somewhere. Yeah. And so, we went from, because we don't even see reports now of ghouls in graveyards, right? That used to be a common thing, the ghoul in the graveyard, and now, I mean, that's not really a phenomenon that's just talked about or even witnessed. So yeah, I'm kind of, I'm on board with this. Whatever the ghoul is.
More to the point, what scared the ghouls out of the graveyards? That's the one I want to know about. Yeah.
Speculation Island.
Graveyard today. Speculation graveyard today.
Well, when Brent was talking about how now we have this procedure of when people give up the meat suit, and if you look at that even more so with the Bible, where it talks about in the end times that the dead shall walk the earth. And what if if you think about when you die, they basically cut apart your organs and they weigh them, and they do an autopsy on you. And then, like Brent said, they put the formaldehyde in there. What if part of that ploy or that need or want of doing such a thing is to minimize Because if we think of like a ghoul of something that comes from the grave, remember in the time when they were burying bodies and they would have the little bell. So in the event somebody was buried and they were still alive, they could ring the bell. And that happened. And that's why they put the bells on the old, because that's when they weren't touching the body. Once the body died, they put it in a coffin, put it in the ground. And now they do all these procedures to it to where it couldn't be reanimated. And how would it be able to get out of a concrete slab block once you're put in a hermetically sealed coffin, embalmed, and basically autopsied? So we couldn't come back at the end times. Zombie apocalypse.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking that this ghoul thing, because I never looked at it from that perspective of the ghoul and all of that. So this has got me got the gears turning in my brain now, And it would be interesting to go back and see like what in different mythologies and different like legends and stuff, what sort of creatures that are talked about fall in line and match up with this, because I'm sure this is something that all cultures and civilizations have probably documented at some point, So yeah, I'm thinking some kind of an underground dwelling entity of some kind that only comes out at night to feed and then slithers and crawls back.
It does. It looks like a slitherer, doesn't it? It does.
Yeah.
There was a recent video over in India, I want to say. And I'm not just saying that because of General Bakshi, but a shout out to General Bakshi anyway. But jiggering, indeed. We will not stand for this, but there was an alleged pale white albino alien type entity that was filmed walking down the road. And we looked at it on one of the streams I'd done. I'm not sure. There's that many fakes and crap out there to wade through. I don't know, but at the same time, it makes me wonder, because I'm keeping an eye open for as many of these pale type reports. Pale creepers, pale crawlers, pale walkers. There's something to it, Brent. Don't know what it is, man. It's like a ghoulish fascination that I've got with these things.
But what if they're pale and like 4 feet tall and in the form of a child knocking on your door? With black eyes.
Yeah, you see, that's a totally different thing altogether. That's a different classification of entity altogether. A very, very creepy, morbid, foreboding, still as much an enigma in my mind, the black-eyed children. Any thoughts on them, Brent? Have they gone away? Because I've not seen many reports, but
not a lot that I've seen either. I mean, most of the reports that were out there seem to be pretty dated now. Like I don't see that people are continuing to have those events. But
does that make it weirder? Well,
I don't know.
It kind of does, doesn't it? Like you had an episode. Yeah. It's like they come in cycles.
Yeah, and the hard part with that is wading through what could be valid reports and what's just people trying to get some attention. I mean, of course there's a lot of that where people are just jumping on a bandwagon. I think that a lot of threads are full of very creative authors, people that are very creative and telling a good yarn, and they're entertaining. But how many of them are absolutely valid? I don't know. I think Brian Bethel saw something in that parking lot, and I think there are people that have had that similar experience. Those are really creepy. I don't know. That is weird though, that they're not still surfacing, or we're not, it's not like UFOs. Those reports came in all the time, and Bigfoot reports come in pretty consistently, in different areas. And there doesn't ever seem to be a time when, hey, nobody's seeing Bigfoot anymore, or hey, nobody's seeing UFOs anymore. But these other phenomena are, those are the question marks. Why do they kind of happen and then don't? And I wish I knew why, but I think that that's an incredibly creepy phenomenon. With the black-eyed kids, it's hard to figure out if they are truly manifest in physical reality, or are they manifest in a very, very profoundly as a spiritual being. And I can't say that I know, but it's really curious.
Very, yeah. So if it isn't the Bigfoot, what would be the one kind of cryptid entity, creeper, ghoul, demonic entity, whatever you want to call it? What would be the one that really piques your interest most, man?
I guess for me personally, I think that Bigfoot is, for me, is the big one. I've had plenty of ghostly experiences, as I shared when I've been on here before with you, and on many times on my own show. But I think the Bigfoot is the one that really, really excites me as well. And maybe it's just by the exposure that I've had in recent, month or weeks with the community of people that are absolutely excited about it and so involved in, learning what they can and seeing what's going on. But I think it's one of those phenomena that I'm excited to know what it is, but at the same time I'm really hesitant for us to solve it, because I don't know what that will mean then, because whatever they are, they've managed to survive and proliferate in our absence, much like they say on Jurassic Park. It's like they've chosen our absence, and sometimes they peek into our world and make themselves known, but for the most part, they avoid us. So when we prove that they're here, and when we can absolutely concrete say, nope, it is this, and this is what they are, we've been able to test, and we're finding them. What does that mean for them? Because I think that we already encroach continuously into the wild places, because everybody wants to have the house in the woods where they're all by themselves, and so they keep pushing out where people aren't. Well, that means you're displacing things that are there. So are we going to continue to displace them? And then what happens when they're factual for the population at large? Is that going to become the weekend activity? Like, hey kids, let's get in the minivan and go out and see if we can see a Bigfoot. So you got multiples of more people going into the wild places of the world. So by loving them, are we going to destroy them? And that's the part that concerns me.
Good point.
Yeah, it's almost like, do we even should we even figure it out? Like you said, like is it going to end up becoming more detrimental to them if we do figure out what's going on? I mean, because you could see what happens. What are we gonna get a Bigfoot and put them in a zoo or something like that, right? Hey kids, go see the Bigfoot that's in captivity or something like that. And obviously, I mean, I don't even think of because I personally think that Bigfoot is some kind of there's some kind of interdimensional thing going on with it. So if they haven't been captured by now, I don't think that they'll ever be captured. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, we do have a tendency of like finding stuff, and like you said, our love for it also ends up kind of becoming more detrimental in the long run. So we just
love. So like, just for instance, Oklahoma, and it was kind of a controversial bill, but they had this what was it, a season? They were proposing a season for Bigfoot, and or I forget what it was. Was it where they're going to get permits for Bigfoot hunting or something like that? But then they had to come back and add all these stipulations. So now, I don't know if it ever went through or not, but the idea was initially it was like, hey, let's have a season on Bigfoot. And then, everybody kind of went up in arms like, what do you mean you're going to send people out with guns to hunt these things down? Which would have been a nightmare because, of course, Bigfoot looks like a human. What else looks like humans? We do. So all of a sudden, you got all these trigger happy people in the woods. But then they redefined it. They said, no, we want, if you live capture them, Well, then what? So you live capture one. Let's say they are able to. Well, then they think they're just going to let it go. Like, yep, here it is, guys. Take a picture. Okay, now let it go. They're going to put it in a zoo, which is, it just seems to me like it would be an absolute travesty for that to happen, because I think they are intelligent like we are, are very, very closely, comparable.
Yeah, because I mean, you see what happens whenever we discover a primate of some kind, right? It usually kind of doesn't end up very well for them, and we would want to have one to study and dissect or whatever, so we could learn everything we possibly can about it, So, yeah, maybe it's just for the best that we don't figure it out. What I mean? And
well, Brent, being a Minnesota boy, I remember as a child in the Minnesota State Fair, they had an exhibit that was practically right in the center near the grandstand of the fairgrounds, and it was allegedly a Bigfoot on ice.
The Iceman, yeah.
The Iceman, yeah. And I remember that. And even as a Paleo-American, when you learn about the history of my people, we were like brought to Europe and put on display.
Yeah.
When the New Worlds were found. And this happened to indigenous people all the way down to South America, that they would bring them to Europe and be like, look at our new toy. So like Scotty was saying, and Brent, when we encroach on these entities, my ancestors are in that whole ideology of you respect every living, breathing entity, and unfortunately somehow we've lost that respect, for everything, more so than just these special, unique, no matter why, or it makes a lot of sense why they would more likely hide than say, hey, look, we are here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's exactly right. I think that's, we tend to leave our footprint on everything, so unfortunately, I don't know. But again, I'm torn. I do want the answers to these questions. I truly do. But at the same time, that's my hesitancy is what does that mean after the fact? So,
we spoke to a couple of guys from New York State. Todd is one of the guys' names, and they were out there hunters. A couple of them are ex-military, so they're used to the outdoors. Long story short, though, they've kind of come across some really strange activity where they go to in the forest. They ended up retrieving what they think might be some kind of Bigfoot hair. But when one of these gentlemen actually touched it, Brent, it's as if they got these horrible, morbid, dark visions. It's like something out of a horror movie. Literally touched it, and then these visions, and had a really, really hard time with it. All to the point of having to speak to people like Bill Bean, that kind of thing going on. What's the kind of weirdest story you've heard when it's in relation to kind of interaction with these entities? Because that, for me, that really stood out, because I've never really heard of anyone being affected like that before. And that's not to say that I don't believe it. I truly do believe it, having spoken to the individuals involved. But what for you, is there any cases that kind of stand out for you that have made you go, wow?
With the Bigfoot?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember. I mean, I've heard a lot of different claims and reports. Let me think. That's kind of
because up until that point, I'd never really even connected the Bigfoot and something dark and ominous together. It never really come across that way to me, but I've never experienced it. So maybe, hearing it, that this one account, and again, you got to take it at face value. They certainly seem to have what appears to be hairs. They're going to get it analysed. They're working with Lon Strickler and things. So it's a case that's still been investigated. But that really kind of made me sit up and think, wow, I've never heard of that aspect to it before.
There was.
Well, could I share?
Oh,
go ahead, Brent.
Oh, okay. I was going to say there was a.
Please.
Thank you.
Hold it till after the break. See, Neither
Okay.
of you get to speak. The break does that. It rules. Universal karma.
The
We'll be
break
back on
rules.
the other side, ladies and gents. We're halfway through Freaky Friday, but we're not anywhere near halfway done. We'll be back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. Boom. There we go. Now I'm going to go and refill my cup, gentlemen. Keep your powder dry on, and we'll pick it up right after the break on that one topic, Nacy. Brent, we'll come to you.
All right. If you wanna throw some music on or something, I gotta go grab something to drink as well.
Okay then. Okay.
Oh,
Nacy, if you want to stay and speak to Brent, or if Brent needs to go somewhere for a couple of minutes, we can shove music on. I'm easy.
'cause I'm easy like Sunday. What do you think, Brent?
How about we do a quick little loo break and
Yes,
stuff? Yeah.
that sounds perfect. Let me go to this. Let me shove some music on. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it is all going off here. Yes, indeed. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, time travelers, interdimensional creepers, ghosts, ghouls, goblins. You name it, we try and include all cryptids here, but it would take all night. It really, really would. All you need to know is we've got Nacy, we've got Scotty Lopez, we've got me, the crazy Kevin Dave Baker show, and the man himself, our very special guest, as is every Freaky Friday the 13th. Brent Thomas is here. And of course, we'll be going through the Paranormal Portal. It doesn't end at the end of Freaky Friday. We're going to be jumping on over onto Brent's channel on YouTube. But if you're at the home of Freaky Friday and the Paranormal Portal, don't go anywhere. Just stay tuned on tfrlive.com. Truth Frequency Radio, your number one network where we give you protection from deception. Silence is consent, and our woo is the best. Yes, indeed. So, before the break, we got rudely interrupted by the universal karma that stepped in when the guys kind of didn't know who was going to go first. I don't know who we decided was going to go first on that one. Creepy Bigfoot stories. Brent, Nacy, it's over to you guys. Fight for it.
What do you want to do, Nacy? Heads or
I
tails?
forfeit.
What I was going to say is, there's one story that I heard a long time ago, and this one, it actually heard it on Sasquatch Chronicles, and it was one of those shows where I think he was just kind of covering, Wes was kind of covering this other takes that people had informed him of, and it was a really creepy story. And basically, I'm paraphrasing it because I don't remember all the details verbatim, but basically what was going on is this family lived in a home, and they had like these Sasquatch going off on the hill. And they were going crazy, whooping and crashing, and all this wild stuff was going on. And suddenly they saw this creepy looking. I don't know. They said it would look like a creepy female in like these bell-bottom pants and the most god-awful makeup job, and like she was just, everything about her was just off. And they said that they saw her walking by on the road. That was a dead-end road. And then she went up in the hills, and all of a sudden, after a while, when she kept walking, she would have been up there. And then I guess the Sasquatch all just went quiet and stopped. And then a while later, and this is me paraphrasing again, so if I'm getting it completely wrong, I do apologize. But they saw her come back down the road again, and they were like, what in the hell's going on? So one of the guys went out in the road after she walked by and was like, hey, and said, and the person didn't even acknowledge them, just kept walking down the road back the way it had come. And they said, hey, and then she turned around, and he said, he as I recall, the guy said they locked eyes. As he locked eyes with her, apparently her mouth grew like 3 sizes too big in this weird grimace and this really imposing, like, evil look. And her eyes were jet black.
That sounds like Momo.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, it wasn't like a skinny woman. It was like this really, very thick woman, I guess, and very tall. Like she was oversized than what they were used to, or whatever, or what they just said she was bigger than what most people are, but she wasn't like Sasquatch size. But she definitely wasn't a Sasquatch. She was dressed in all this like really tacky, creepy looking clothes, and big 70s bell bottoms. But he said that the face, like her face turned, and I guess they kind of felt like maybe this was some kind of demon incarnate and had gone up and had something to do with the Sasquatches. So
whoa,
I don't know if that
that definitely qualifies.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a different one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it would make sense because there always seems, a lot of the times when you hear about these like encounters with the Sasquatch and all of that, there always seems to be this aura of like paranormal that kind of is also going on with it as well. I don't know. There's like this kind of otherworldly surrealness that always surrounds these encounters. That seem to be much different than, say, like your encounter with any other kind of animal out in the woods, right? Like, you encounter a bear, it's just you and the bear, and that, okay, that's a bear, and but when there's this encounter with the Sasquatch, there's like a lot of weirdness that's also going on in the periphery, right? It's not just the Bigfoot and you just see the Bigfoot, but there's always like, I mean, you have the reports that people feel that almost like they're being, they're communicating telepathically with them in some way as well, right? That there's some kind of a strange link that is going on that's just far beyond, a physical interaction. So, and that's when you start getting into the, okay, well then what's really going on here? And then you start going down the rabbit hole. What are these things really? I mean, are they just, are they really just a undiscovered hominid species, or are they something more? And the more you look into it, I start leaning towards I think it's something more. I don't just think we're talking about some kind of a primate species. We're dealing with something else, and so it would make sense that there would probably be a lot of other weirdness and woo that accompanies the Sasquatch,
Right.
Well, one thing that I have recently learned, and my ancestry, the Anishinaabe people, the North American forest dwellers, excuse me, we talk about the wilderness entities. And I just learned that, Brent, you've probably heard this word, Pagwaji.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is one of the words that my ancestors used, but then when you look at the translation of the word, it means the entities of the forest, not like the normal, not like the birds or the animals, but the entities that aren't like the Anishinaabe. Mm. And this is one of the words that they use to describe Bigfoot, Sasquatch. On my reservation alone, there's talk that on the southeast corner of the reservation, there's Bigfoot sightings. Up in Red Lake, Minnesota, on that reservation, there's allegedly people that have VHS tapes of Bigfoot. And I've told Brent this for years. I've been trying to get a hold of this family that allegedly has a copy of this tape that I've been probably for like 5 years been trying to get a hold of. So with that being said, I think I shared with Brent. Did I share it on your show, or have I shared it on Freaky Friday, my alleged possible Bigfoot story?
We want to hear it again, irregardless, dude. Absolutely. There's going to be somebody out there like right now who hasn't heard it.
Well, my grandparents, I grew up basically on Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, northern Minnesota, 45 minutes south of my reservation. And on the South Shore Drive is where my grandparents lived. And south of the road was nothing but, some farmland, a lot of forest and whatnot. And if we would go west on South Shore Drive, we would go around the lake and we would come up to Long Bridge, where there was a little cabin area and they had a general store where we would go and get candy and what. You could jump off the bridge on hot days into the lake. And so one day I asked my grandparents, hey, can I go down to Long Bridge store? And they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And they used to have these antique bicycles, like the really old bicycles that you could barely lift them off the ground. They were so heavy with the big tires. Sure. And you had to put all of your weight into it just to get the momentum of going. So I'm going around South Shore Drive, and on my left side, I cross a road, and then there's a huge cornfield where in the middle of the field, there's a stanchion of woods, trees. So I'm going around the corner, and all of a sudden, in the corner of my left eye, in the cornfield, I swear I see a swatch of corn that has been disturbed. And right as I looked, something crouched down And it was like literally maybe about 2 feet higher than the corn. And this is during the fall in August, where the corn is starting to get brown and it's at its height. Usually corn stalks, they get 5-6 feet tall for sure. And this thing squats down, and I see like when you walk through the weeds and stuff, it carves a swash. It gives you a wake, you could say. And so I looked at the angle of that wake and the direction that I'm going, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we meet. At one point we meet, and this just got me so scared. I put everything into it to get those pedals moving because I was scared crapless. I get around the corner faster than I expect, and I don't look back, and I just go straight to Longbridge. I get to Longbridge. I'm so nervous. I call my grandparents and ask them if they could come and get me, or if there was any of my cousins or friends around, if they could send them to meet me halfway, because when I went back, I had to go on the side of the road that was closest to that field, and I was not going to do that. But to this day, it's one of those things where it's like, it was a corner of the eye. It was that blur, but it was something that if I was to speculate what it was, I would said it was a Bigfoot, because that's it. That's what I thought it looked like, from growing up in Search of with Leonard Nimoy, and that famous, Brent, the one I'm talking about, the famous video of Bigfoot crossing the river.
Oh, the Patterson-Gimlin, or?
Yes. And from that recollection, because as you try to speculate what you just witnessed, you go through the database of what you know, and that's where I was in conclusion, but yeah. And seemingly the more you get up in the northern Minnesota area into the woods, that's where you get the sightings. And then I talked to my ancestors and my elders about it, and they're like, yeah, what do you want to know about it? We respect them. They have their territory, So what else is there to do?
And, there's... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say they're very much the part that I think really bowled me over in terms of the Sasquatch. When I first learned about them as a younger child, I'm with you. I knew there was something to do with the Pacific Northwest because Leonard Nimoy told me that on In Search Of, and yeah, I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film on there as well, but it was learning. Many years later, maybe a decade and a half or 2 decades ago, that they're everywhere. They are all over the place. And and this is a global phenomenon, which I think is even more incredible, that I think these things are the most adaptable creature on the face of the earth.
Shout out to the Yowie, all of our down under brothers and sisters. Yes, indeed. We've got a big Australian contingent, Brent.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We've got the Yowie down there. What does New Zealand have? Do they have the Yowie, or have they got their own kind of specific one?
That's curious, because I can't say for sure that there's Yowie on New Zealand.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to have to check that one out, eh?
That's a good one. That's a good question.
New Zealand Bigfoot.
But they're everywhere.
It's the Moe Hoa. It's Moehau. Moehau. I like that.
That's
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, here in Brent was mentioning, them discussing in Oklahoma, about allowing people to actually hunt these things or whatever. It just shows that, like, these sightings are everywhere, and this is a phenomenon that's not just a national phenomenon, but a international, global phenomenon. And the Bigfoot here, I would say in the Midwest, or kind of like the Kansas area and all that stuff, they refer to him as the grass man,
Sure.
and
Ohio.
yeah, Yeah, many different names for the same entity, right? Then you got in the Southeast Florida area, they call them skunk ape, or what's your take on the Rougarou, Brent?
Rougarou?
Because
Here's my confusion about the Rougarou is that I've heard it used to describe a wolf-like being, like a dog man, but it's considered to be almost like a skinwalker phenomena, that a person afflicted with it and turn into the Rougarou. Now, I've also heard it just used to describe an alligator-like being in the swamps as well. And I don't think that that's correct, but it's kind of become bastardized a little bit. But I think, traditionally, I think there's not much difference as far as I can tell between a Rougarou and a skinwalker, except for the fact that it sounds like if someone is afflicted with the lycanthropy that makes them transition into a Rougarou, it's not a willing transition. It's almost like a possessing spirit of some sort, that allegedly manifests physically as well. Whereas skinwalkers are very much in control of that and can transition at will. So it's kind of an interesting parallel, but yet it's not the same thing. But I think it's, again, the thing that I think that really rattles my cage and cooks my bacon is the fact that I thought when I got into doing a show that I knew pretty much what was out there and what, all this phenomena was. But the amount of things I keep learning all the time and keep hearing about, it's just like, my God, what isn't possible, rather than talk about what is possible. I mean, it just seems to be that if you can imagine it, there's some place out there that probably has some kind of experience like that.
We had the weirdest kind of Bigfoot story happen over here. It's the wild man in the UK. We've got our wild man here. And,
Sure.
it was up near Inverness, actually, of all places. Not somewhere that's really associated with any kind of Bigfoot kind of sightings. Usually big cats. A lot of big cats up that way. But this one individual who had been walking in the forestry just close to, I think it was Nairn Beach, they actually ended up getting hit by a fish. Do you remember that one, Scott? The guy that got hit by the fish? Now, people tried to debunk it by saying it was like a bird had dropped it. But, now that I think back to the story, the individual in question, you know what he described, Brent? He described a moment that was very similar to your everything went quiet in the forest.
Oh.
And he already had an indication, a feeling that something was going on, something was there, and then got lobbed. They just got whacked in the back by this fish. And he said something ran away, but it showed you the fish lying on the ground. He'd taken a picture of it and things and stuff like that. But he said the thing that bounded away with the noise of it and the kind of clattering must have been a sizable entity, whatever it was. So yeah, these things are reported everywhere, man. And it only takes one. Only takes one. It's ridiculous to think that in amongst all of these stories that have been recorded throughout time, that they're all made up. That's just not even logical, It's crazy. So there's definitely something there. What they are, where they come from, where they reside, I have no idea. No idea.
And there's been many reports of the Bigfoot throwing things, right? Throwing stones.
Somebody in the chat asked about that. They wanted us to ask you, Brent, about the whole stone throwing. You can throw it. You can throw a throne if you want. Particular with her still on it, if I had my choice. But stone throwing by the Bigfoot. What's going on there?
Well, as far as what it sounds like, and here's the thing that really impresses me about the Bigfoot is that this is one of the reasons that I think they are so intelligent. Not only because they avoid us and because they're geniuses at existing undetected around us, but also because of the strategies they employ all the time. And it's incredibly strategic, but people talk about their claims. We went to this campsite, found this perfect campsite by this lake, kind of remote, out of the way, off the beaten path. And so we set up our tent, and then we started hearing some weird noises. But nothing real weird. Wood knocks, that kind of thing. And then it's like the behaviors intensify when they're trying to push people out. When they're trying to push people out, they start out with odd noises. The wood knocking could be a locator for them between each other. Like, I'm over here. Okay, I'm over here. Are we all set to go? Could be used for hunting and many other reasons, but it's certainly not something we're used to hearing. You can hear woodpeckers, and those can be pretty pronounced sounds, but a real solid wood knock is not something you expect to hear in the forest. But then people talk about the things that are thrown, and usually it begins with small things like pebbles were hitting my tent, and stones were being thrown into the path around me, and it seems like these are all incredibly strategic intimidations, and then if the people stick around or are kind of obtuse, then comes the tree breaking, like the hearing a tree fall, like full grown trees being pushed over somehow. And so it escalates and escalates. And then the things they throw get bigger too. Suddenly it's basketball sized, rocks, that are being lobbed 50 feet or more. And, if anybody out there, and I'm sure everybody has an experience with this, but if you've taken a sizable rock about the size of a basketball, I mean, we might be able to throw it 20 feet, but it's not going to be real impressive. But there's stories. There's one story where these people canoed this person. No, it's people. They canoed up to this inlet, and I think it was in British Columbia, and they were pretty far in and up a river, and they decided to camp. So they set up their tents and stuff, and where they were, it was like a shoreline along the river, and the river's about 30 feet wide with about 10 feet of beach on their side and very little on the other side. Is very scrubby. But they're sitting there in their tent, and they experienced all this weird stuff, that things are happening. And then they report that a basketball-sized rock was thrown from the thicket on the other side of the lake or the river through the air and landed on one of the unoccupied tents. Now, I don't know about you, but that's an incredible feat of strength. And I think that they're deadly accurate with this. Like, rock throwing for them, I don't think is just incidental. I wouldn't be surprised if they used it to hunt, if that's one of the ways that they probably put
I was just about to say. Yeah, I was just about to say that's probably how they hunt. So they're so accurate with their shots, basically.
When you're talking about this, so I go back to that story from New York, because that was one of the things I ended up asking the guys, because what they were describing, you mentioned how they're strategic there, Brent. What I was hearing was strategy on a par with almost military type thinking.
Yes.
Because these guys were almost talking about it almost being like a choke point that they think that these things had set up for hunting purposes. And when I was listening to them describing it, I had to ask them, I said, this sounds like these are talking about something military. And they kind of laughed, and they thought that's the only way we could describe it as well. Like, these were well trained. They were very, very proficient at whatever it was they were doing. That's kind of weird, man. It gives that even extra weird kind of angle, right?
Yeah, it does, and it's almost. I'm sorry, Nacy, just a sec, but it's almost like they have such an awareness of the psychology of that. Like they know that they're pushing the buttons, and they know that they're making people uncomfortable, and they'll do things like mirror, shadow, walking in stride with people in, thick brush where you can't see them, and they'll match step for step. The people walk, they walk. The people freeze, they freeze. And that's a military tactic that's used as well. When you're tracking somebody, chasing somebody, is to, walk when they walk. If you hear them stop, you stop, and it's an intimidation factor. But God, it is really incredibly psychological.
Well, absolutely. With just the story that you shared about a rock hitting an empty tent. Yes. Because then you speculate they knew it was empty, to where it was like, hey, can you not get more of a message that we just caved in your empty tent if you remain here? Can you get the message? What more, Well, what's the next step from there?
We've just been sent something really interesting, and before I bring it on the screen here, I'm going to share it over at TFR right now. Well, let's see, where is that? There it is there. We'll look at it after the break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll look at it after the break. But, you know, we talk about how these things have been here forever. And sometimes there's clues and paintings and stories from the past. And we're going to be talking about that after the break when we come back with hour number 3 on Freaky Friday. There we go. There we go. I don't know if I sneaked it in before the break kicked in or not, but hey, we're there now. 2 hours down. Start of hour number 3, boys. It's flying by.
Yeah, it was the blink of an eye, man.
Yeah.
It just flew by.
So listen, this will be better for YouTube anyway. Check this out, guys. And they say to describe this for you, this looks like something from, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, maybe earlier than that. It's a bunch of knights. There's a bit of royalty there with the crown on. There's a big fire burning. And, well, in one picture, there looks to be a soldier throwing a very, very hairy being into the fire. But in another picture, there appears to be a hairy being taking one of our naked females for whatever kind of purposes I can't imagine. And he's got a very, very dodgily.
In the gene pool.
If you look closely there, he's got a very dodgy bit of tassel hanging down here. I think I know what he's got in order for what he's got up his sleeve, shall we say? But I don't know when this comes from. I don't know whence this comes from. But wow, that certainly depicts something that looks, dare I say it, Sasquatch-esque.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Definitely.
That's creepy.
Very creepy, right?
And if that, the one that's holding the female there was to stand straight up, you would notice that he would be much taller than the other individuals that are that are depicted there. And yeah, it's a very interesting. Huh.
In the Neshomis book, it's an Anishinaabe storybook, creation book, tells a lot of our myths, and it's like a beginner's children's book, more or less. But in there, they have an artist's rendition of the Sasquatch Bigfoot, and they have stars for its eyes, which always gave me a little extra of that. Are they interdimensional, extraterrestrial entities? Like speculation has been brought up there.
Well, I'm not impressed with this artistic rendition of whatever this is. It's only got 5 toes. And I've been told that they've definitely got 6 toes. Not having it. It's a fake Sasquatch attack, man. Somebody pulled a false Sasquatch. There's no end to the shame,
Barnum and Bailey's circus, their so-called freak show.
Now we
love it.
We need to find out if the Bigfoot's got bare feet, like is depicted here. Now, Luna assures me one of them has 6 toes, but I'm not buying any of it. Not buying any of it.
At least minimally like a hobbit's foot.
Yeah. Right, I need to watch the time here. You have at it, guys. I'll rudely interrupt your conversation when it's time to come back, right?
But that painting is very interesting, though. I mean, it does show that.
Is it a painting or a tapestry?
It looks like a tapestry, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like one of these kind of. It's not the tapestry of Normandy, obviously, but it's that kind of style, isn't it?
There is the whole. Are they genetically similar with us? Because there are legends of offsprings, of course. Zana in Russia. Yeah.
Here we go. Welcome back. We are about to move into hour number 3 on this week's Freaky Friday. Goes through the Paranormal Portal. Over in the UK, we are at 2 a.m. It's a strange Saturday, but it's still Friday the 13th. Over in the US, and that's where the home of Freaky Friday and Paranormal Portal is. Truth Frequency Radio, tfrlive.com. Remember to tell everyone about TFR. So many shows to choose from on there, but right now you're getting a real paranormal woo fest. And Brent Thomas is the host of the Paranormal Portal, and he loves a bit of Bigfoot action. And we've been getting into the Bigfoot here for the past, I don't know, hour or so. And just before the break, we got handed a very interesting image that we were looking at on YouTube. But to describe this for the radio audience, and I couldn't quite attach it in a file over on the chat room. It's a web file, unfortunately. But it's like a tapestry from, let's say, 400 or 500 years ago, at least. It's got royalty, it's got military, there's swords. But there's also something really interesting going on, because there appears to be an oversized individual that is neck to ankle hairy. All you can see is their face, their eyes, and their feet and their hands. And they're hairless. But one's getting tossed into a fire. And then on the other hand, there's one that appears to be trying to steal one of our women. And you know, that automatically makes me think of, from a biblical kind of point of view, when the Nephilim mating with the daughters of man. Because that certainly looks like that's what that individual has got on his mind. Whether he had his way or not, history will obviously tell the story. His story or her story or whatever it is. But that's an interesting image. Thank you, Luna, for bringing that up. But what inspired that, guys? Could it be that the Bible? Could it have been inspired by that? Or were they experiencing something that looked like this? What do you think?
I think that's, given the attire, it doesn't look like a biblical depiction.
No.
But those are obviously knights wearing armor and swords, brandishing swords and stuff. So I think it's possibly a more recent telling of an event than biblical.
What do you make of it, Scotty boy?
No, I agree. I think this is depicting something that somebody witnessed, something that had occurred, and it was put on this tapestry, as a record of that. Maybe this was one of the rare times when the Bigfoot was captured. Maybe they did get a hold of one or two of them. Maybe
it looks
caught
like
them.
it looks like a hostage exchange that's gone wrong.
Well, the very first, when you started describing it, the image that comes to, well, it's not an image, like a movie played out in my head, where a bunch of knights were sitting around a dinner table, and then the tapestry would be on the wall, and they would be like, Sir Walter, tell us the story again, and Sir Walter would direct you to the tapestry and talk about his adventure and what occurred, because like Brent said, it was something that was made for a reason. More likely the reason is a reminder, or like we take pictures of the moment. And so that moment happened, and it was put on tapestry so Sir Walter can brag about it to his other knights. Because if they were fighting dragons, then what other creatures of the bizarre or the paranormal would they also be fighting?
I'm going to contest that for only one reason, they say. For only one reason. The royal individual depicted in this, to say that the artist was very, very sparing on his aesthetically good looks. He looks like an absolute dweeb. So, so I think probably the artist probably went in the fire right after they presented this to the king or the lord, and
or he lost a couple fingers.
Yeah, maybe it or maybe it hung in the castle of one of his opponents, where they would ridicule him and throw darts at him or something. I don't know, but this is weird. I've never seen this before. And you would think, Brent, you've been doing the whole Bigfoot thing a long time. You ever seen anything like this?
Well, oddly enough, I have never seen something like this, a depiction that would be maybe the Woodwose or the Gray Man or the Woodiwassa or whatever over. It looks European anyway, but there are so many stories in both Native American legend and, of course, of them abducting women. These Sasquatch apparently could be rogues coming in. They're clanless. They've been kicked out because they're too big or challenged for leadership and lost, and so they're kind of these rogues. And maybe they're. I mean, even in the modern day, there's still reports that they have been known to take women and do that whole deal, which is absolutely horrifying. But just by the tapestry, the way that it looks like that maybe that was the story, that they had lost a woman and they tracked it down and dispatched the wild beasts and reclaimed the woman, or something to that effect.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Like they actually sent a party or something out to go find this woman, or they caught them in the act of abducting this woman or whatever. And, it may have been one of these rare moments when they actually did capture a Bigfoot.
The damsel in distress.
Yeah, and so it very, very interesting. And like Brent said, I mean, this seems to also be sort of a common thing as well, or something that has been spoken about, is them abducting women, in certain occasions. And I've even heard that there's been some occasions where they've taken children but not harmed the children, but like almost tried to raise them as their own, so it's very interesting, no doubt. And it does make you wonder, are we dealing like Brent said, with like maybe a rogue, kicked out of the, I would say Bigfoot clan or whatever that they were part of, and they're just kind of wandering around, maybe, want some company of some kind or whatever. I don't know, who knows? Or if it's a female Bigfoot, maybe she wants a child, and they resort to that,
if the Walklings have their way, that's how the paintings of the early 21st century will look. They'll say that us men used to be barbaric and misogynistic and covered in hair and just grabbing people willy-nilly. And you see how history can really cement a bad look for you there, Brent,
Absolutely. I have no idea how history will remember me, or if it'll remember me at all, but I hope I get a tapestry of my own someday.
Oh, brother, trust me, dude, you're going to be remembered. You are bringing the woo, brother, bringing the woo. So listen, let me ask you then.
To your tapestry?
Sorry, go again, Nacy?
A parallel to your tapestry, it makes me think about the royal family when they brought in Princess Diane to strengthen the gene pool. Maybe the wilderness entities needed to strengthen it, and every now and then they need to grab a healthy woman to help bring in offspring.
That's an interesting thought, because of course, and I realize it's hotly debated, but the Melba Ketchum genetic study does indicate a human female in the chain, but the unknown father, whatever the father was, is not known. So maybe there's something to that.
Man, damn, dude. So listen, let me ask you then. We're going to shift gears, because I haven't had a chance to ask you on air about your thoughts surrounding all of the UFO talk that's been happening in the mainstream as of lately, Brent. You've probably been watching this playing out from your location there. We've been talking about it ad nauseum, but I've not had your thoughts on what you think's going on. Are you encouraged, or are you as skeptical as I am about all of it? What say you? Disclosure, dude, is it coming?
As hopeful as I was that I was going to be wrong about it, I really wasn't holding my breath too much about this whole, that report's coming out. They snuck it into the bill and it's signed, so it has to happen. And I was like, well, maybe, but then, you just, all they have to say is two words: national security. And that overwrites anything. Well, we can't talk about it. National security. So
the one key word was the unclassified. unclassified report, you know? That's not the
Yeah.
stuff we want.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was, I was really encouraged by the whole Tic Tac footage and finally an acknowledgement by that, because I don't think probably that we're ever going to get the full disclosure where they're going to open the books and say, this is what we found, this is what we've reverse engineered, and we're working on this. We're never going to get that kind of transparency no matter what, because ultimately, it seems that the first consideration is, what kind of weapons does this make? And so they don't want to put that out there. But I think that at least the acknowledgement that we did get, that the Pentagon said, yeah, those are legit. We don't know what they are. That was really something, because I think for the first time, it's just been such a tongue-in-cheek thing, and the discreditors and the perhaps official discreditors that were working overtime, making people look stupid for believing in this stuff. And of course, all the people that have been enthusiasts trying to, substantiate all the blood, sweat, and tears they put into this pursuit in their lives. So to have an official body go, yeah, those really were filmed, we don't know what they are, I think that was incredibly powerful, because it's about as much disclosure as I expect we're ever going to get. But at least it's an acknowledgement. So now, you remember in the old news reports, if you ever watch mainstream media, which I don't, but I did, anytime they brought up anything like Bigfoot and UFOs, it was always with a snicker. And now we're going to go to Pete, who's talking with a witness who says they saw a flying saucer. It was always tongue in cheek and chuckling through it like, oh, this is the time for the comic relief. And now those same programs seem to be saying, well, we don't know what they are. And they're at least delivering it with not so much of a ridiculousness, which I think is important. But I really don't think we'll ever get the full picture. I don't think that's ever going to happen, because there's always going to be, how can this be utilized? What can this enable us to do that we couldn't do before? Even like the To the Stars Academy, which I will go, on my own show, I've gone on record with this many times, but I'll go on record here on your show. I think that's the dumbest name ever. It sounds like a freaking talent search. It doesn't sound like a group that's looking into the seriousness of the phenomena.
You seen how many millions they're in debt now, dude?
Oh, I can't imagine. But
yeah, the CIA, they must have pulled all of their backing and put it into Jeremy Corbell, the new disclosure kid,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're probably right. But I will say, they had this opportunity where they were spearheading this effort to get this exotic materials studied. So they got given materials from different experiencers, and they were going to spearhead the effort to get it researched, and and they were going to finally figure out what these things were made of, these weird materials that were collected that were allegedly UFO pieces. And I think they even got one from Linda Moulton Howe, which I don't know how she feels about it, but I bet she's probably not real happy. So the To the Stars Academy, and all their infinite wisdom, they were looking around for who to join with in order to really study the materials, and in the end, it ended up being the U.S. Army. so they're not gonna like, oh guys, we're working with the Army and we found out this. That's gonna get shelved right back away. So
I think that's when Tom DeLonge finally realized, oh boy. Oh boy, I've been had. This has been a con job from the start. You know what I mean?
Well, they're in it for the long sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, speaking of needing some lube.
Very, very true. Very true. Very true. Although I must admit, I am impressed with the whole season 2 of Skinwalker. Did you catch that one, Brent? Have you been watching that show? Oh, man, it's an experience.
I know. I've heard a lot about it, and I really want to check it out, but I just don't have the time.
No, we need to make time for Brent to check that one out for sure. That's definitely a location I would like to go to.
I'd like to bring in a naysayer's perspective of the Skinwalker and shapeshifters from my ancestry or my perspective, because we have what is called a clan system, where groups of people are denoted by their clan. and it was a means of making sure that the bloodline stayed pure, because you were not allowed to have a relationship with someone in the same clan. Well, in the respective clans, they would wear garbs, they would do rituals and ceremonies where they would be wearing garb that signified their clan, whether it be wearing like bear hides or wolf skins. And also when hunters would go hunting, they would cover themselves in skins so they can have an easier chance of coming up on that they are hunting. And I would like to speculate that at some point when, like out into the wilderness, when they would put on like a coyote skin so they can come closer to a frontiersman home or settlement and be like, what the heck is these people encroaching on our land? And then somebody has a gun and they shoot the individual. They go and they find out that it has like a coyote skin on a human. And would it not be a really good explanation? Oh, it was a shapeshifter, and it I shot a coyote and it changed into a man after I shot it. Or, just somebody coming upon a clearing where a bunch of Native Americans are dressed up in skins of animals and they're doing ritual ceremony. And the story gets back to the main civilization, and they're like, yeah, I came upon all of these shapeshifters, but the full speculation of it, the full spectrum of it, I have heard many stories of where there are entities of the Anishinaabe descent that had these powers or these abilities to shapeshift into animals. So full spectrum, yes, it's true. Other spectrum, not at all. So somewhere in the middle, I'm sure there's occurrences of both.
Yeah. No doubt. Going back to this so-called disclosure thing that we were talking about, the thing that always, once all this stuff started coming out about, ATIP, and we had the Tic Tac video, and all of a sudden mainstream media was covering it, and the first thing that popped in my mind is, okay, why the 180? Why the 180 all of a sudden, where all of a sudden this topic is taken seriously? Like Brent said, it used to be laughed at, and it was kind of the butt of the joke. Let's talk to so and so who said he saw a flying saucer, right? And it was just sort of
that Space Force needs coins, Scott. That Space Force needs coins.
Yeah, I guess, and and then you had government denial all the time, and everybody was treated like they were crazy. And if you were into UFOs, you were just some crazy tinfoil hat guy, and all of that stuff. Now all of a sudden, the Pentagon's like, oh yeah, we're researching this, we're taking it seriously. Mainstream media is covering it all seriously, and all of this stuff. Like, this is all of a sudden it's a legit topic that's to be talked about, and all of that. There's got to be an agenda somewhere. There's got to be a reason why they've just suddenly decided to flip the script on this. And what also gets me is, you have a lot of the people in the UFO community who are like, yeah, kind of like, oh, okay, cool. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You guys never trusted the government and the mainstream media all of this time, about all of this stuff. But all of a sudden, when the mainstream media and the government do a 180 and start taking it seriously, you're all of a sudden going to believe them? You're not going to question why they've done this?
But what's your speculation, Scotty?
I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. All I know is that there's something more to this There's a reason why they're doing this. Why all of a sudden they want to put out this perception that they're taking this seriously all of a sudden. Is it because that there's a lot of black project sort of weaponry and technology that they're working on that they know that people are going to be seeing in the sky?
And Scott,
it's like,
you have to throw in here at this point, it's just a coincidence that all of these videos were filmed right off the coast of where these companies that you're talking about that are building this black tech, this electronic warfare, these automated drones, these new type physics with new propulsion devices, and they just happen to be filmed in that one military zone. It's really convenient. It's convenient, you know.
They have to test these things, and they know that people are going to see them, you know, and they know that, you know, people are going to be asking questions and wondering what's going on. So what better way to like cover, you know, kind of cover that up than to go, oh, well, there's been an increase in UFO sightings and we're taking it seriously and we're looking into it and all that stuff. That way people aren't going, oh, is that a new stealth aircraft of some kind flying over, or, you know,
and
whatever.
Of course, Scott, to scare people, you know, you got to get a bit of scare out there. We don't know what these things are. We need money to research them and to keep you safe at night, and the Space Force will do that and we'll be fine.
Yeah. You throw that element of fear, you know, fear of the unknown out there, and people are like, oh, well, we really need to get to the bottom of this. So we need to start funding, you know, like you said, start funding the Space Force so we can figure out what all of this is. So I don't know, man. And of course, always in the background, in secret, the government has taken this seriously. You know, they know that they're, and you know, and I'm not trying to say this to like poo-poo the whole UFO thing, because there is a legit UFO phenomenon of unknown, you know, stuff occurring, and the government has always low key in the background taken that seriously and probably wants to know what's going on with that, but they don't want to put that perception out to the public that they don't know what's going on, right? Because the government always wants to put the perception out there that they know what's going on. They have control of everything. And if they put the perception out that they don't have control over something, then that, you know, puts you know, it puts doubt in people's mind, you know. So I don't know, man.
I cannot confirm or deny that it may or may not be true, the occultation of Captain Kev Baker having Brent Thomas sign the NDA about the full disclosure of the paranormal, because we have to abide by what we could or could not have signed. And I hope you did get that in your inbox, Captain.
Well, we did, yes, I think so. But, you know, another big important part of when you're talking about this as well is, I think we've got to look at what really, really occurred, because governments do things for reasons. If they're telling people something, it's for an effect, and you got to look at how they done it, because this is something that when I heard it being said the first time, it really dawned on me how this is really important. This wasn't aimed at people like me and Brent and Nacy and Scotty and all of you listening, because we're already kind of looking into these topics. These topics are nothing new to us. And the fact that they used a mainstream platform, the fact that they rolled out on the Tucker Carlsons, on the CNN, in the bigger publications, the mainstream media, that means it was designed for that audience. And they know us well enough by now that isn't us. If they want to target us, they've got enough agents, enough people. They've got enough alt media shows paid off to target us folks. Go and look on social media. Listen to half these shows now. Half of them are bought and paid for. So that means that it was a targeting of an audience who, the day before all of this, back in 2017, they would have laughed at the kind of topics we talk about. The news would have played the funny music for them. People would have been programmed to think this is all ridiculous. But the same programmers who are programming that audience, they flicked the switch. And immediately when that happened, you had people changing their opinion on something, changing their behavior towards this topic. And that's the power of the media. And it's the fact that they targeted people that watch mainstream media. Why is it they want a bigger audience looking into these subjects right now? What is it they've got up their sleeve? Sure, there'll be money. They'll try and justify bigger budgets. People might start to imagine, speculate, fake alien invasions. You could go all the way to that and then some. But we'll get into this more on the other side. But always remember that this was a psyop not aimed at us. It was aimed at the people that watch the mainstream. So why? We'll be back on the other side. Don't go anywhere. There you go, boys. There you go. There you go. Yes.
We're at the middle. We're at the middle of the show.
We're at the middle of the show, so that reminds me, I got a couple of pictures of Luna that we can take a look at. I really, when we're on the radio, I don't like kind of talking about images and things because it kind of cuts out a lot of the audience. So if we take a look at this now, this is a weird one. Now, I don't know if this was like Salvador Dali making a kind of early attempt at something, but this looks weird.
It's a blemmy.
Whoa.
It's a blemmy.
A blemmy?
Blemmy. Yeah, they're these allegedly paranormal creatures that have a face on their chest.
Oh, so this is another one here that I've got. Check this out.
What the hell is that?
That looks like a blemmy as well.
It does, yeah.
A headless blemmy.
It was depicted in Full Metal Alchemist as one of the demons. They had a entity in there. With
Full Metal Alchemist? What a name for a movie. I've not seen that.
Wow. No, Kev, or Nasa, you watch Full Metal Alchemist?
Oh, yes.
Oh, dude, that's an awesome anime.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you want to learn more about blemmies, I think it's spelled BLEMMYES.
Blemmies.
Yeah. Just do a Google search and check the images.
Blemmies, headless man.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of this before. Oh, wow. I love it. I love it.
Here we go, Kev. You're going to go down the blemmy rabbit hole.
Oh, we're all going down the blemmy rabbit hole after the break with that one. That is fantastic. Fantastic. So, yeah. The whole disclosure thing, man, it's hard to make head nor tail of it. But that's one thing I think is kind of important. That was aimed at, I don't like calling people normies or NPCs. They're just people that watch mainstream. They're no different than anyone else. They've just got different ideas. But that, for me, that was definitely aimed more at them, right?
Right. I think it's
the general masses. The general masses.
Yeah.
What they're trying to project this out to. Just your average
Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
Well, there are some people that have never went close to the rabbit hole, let alone not even know what it is.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They wouldn't even recognize the tip when they go beyond it.
I think it's more about what's not being talked about. Like, we'll throw the carrot out there and then people will quit asking questions about everything else.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to go into all that, but
I know what you mean. This is so we've got half an hour of Freaky Friday left, folks, and I have pinned a comment up the top of the chat room. It's got the link you need to take you to and through the Paranormal Portal. Yes.
And I'm also saving my personal woo for when we get on the show.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, you were house sitting.
I had a wild story happen today. Just happened today that I'm going to share with you guys when we get over there too.
Oh.
Is Renzo in the YouTube world?
Yes, she is.
Oh, okay. So if you guys care, me and Renzo had a bizarre coincidence, synchronicity that kind of popped both of our noodles last night.
Hold that thought. I'll bring it to you when we come back, Nacy. Here we go. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And it's usually at this point I am telling people that this is the final segment of Freaky Friday. But we'll be handing over to Brent Thomas after the break. Don't go anywhere. More paranormal on the way. Only tonight, we're only halfway through this Woo Fest that we're having here on tfrlive.com. We're also on TalkStream Live, and we're going out on the YouTube channel, The Kev Baker Show, right now. But then we'll be jumping on over into the Paranormal Portal. So we're only halfway through. So I hope you are ready for even more woo coming your way. Scott and Brent have got a couple of personal stories that they're saving them for when we go onto the Paranormal Portal. So we've got plenty to get into. And then just as we were coming back to the break, I had to rudely interrupt, as I always have to do. I'm sorry, Nacy, but we were coming back to the network and you were just about to share a story about somebody who has her own YouTube channel, who is very, very underviewed. Come on, people, go and subscribe to Renzo Scriber outside there in the YouTube chat. You can find her channel. But Nacy, you and Renzo had an experience. Is it family friendly, first of all, before we get into this, or, you know, what's been going on here?
Absolutely, and a shout out to Renzo when I would come to Freaky Friday with all my slides and images. Renzo was the one that would assist me in finding those for me, and I met Renzo through the Discord family, and she was streaming last night, and I was starting to get ready for going to bed. And so I'm listening to her before I do this. And she's playing some video game and kind of describing it. And she said that, okay, I'm just going to sit here until this character named Dizzy comes around. And in the program, it's about every 20, 25 minutes, this character called Dizzy, I believe it was, comes around. And so she's going on her diatribe or her monologuing about her thoughts on what's going on. And then I type in the chat room, and I sometimes go on in both entities of Cannabis Resolution and the Megaphone Man. And I was there as both entities. And so I dictated in the chat room, by the power of the almighty pinky toe, I command Dizzy to appear. And I hit send at the same time. Literally, like within a minute after I hit send, all of a sudden Renzo on the video is going, "Oh, there's Dizzy." And then right after she said that, she looks at the chat and she sees my summon. And then it was like that, like, whoa moment of synchronicity or coincidence, because it was literally within a minute that this Dizzy character shows up and that Renzo even notices it. And it popped both of our noodles. There was a glitch in the Matrix last night.
Serendipity working its magic, dude. That's definitely a good one. It's one of those goosebump synchronicities. You got to be there. Definitely a good one. And listen, folks, one last reminder. Please check out Renzo over on YouTube. It's the very least we can all do, since, like Nacy said, she was really, really great at putting together some of the visuals that we used when Nacy used to join us when he first joined the Woo crew. So, where else are we going now? Oh, I know where we're going, because I found out about a new cryptid during the break. A headless man cryptid. Brent Thomas, you seem to know a lot more about these entities called blemmies than I do. I mean, off the top of your head, what are we dealing with here, dude? I had no idea. No idea. We had a mythical headless man rumored in antiquity and later to inhabit remote parts of the world, known as Acephaloi, or the blemmies.
Yeah, they're creepy. I don't know. I don't know whatever happened to them. I don't know how these things came into being, but it's just a strange thing. And to describe it to those of you out there that are just listening, they don't have the visuals, is that picture a person, but without a head, However, the face appears on the chest and abdomen, and that is what a Blemmy apparently is or was. That there's no modern sightings of Blemmies that I know of. They're just this weird. Yeah, so yeah, Kev put it in the TFR chat. If any of you are out there in the TFR land, tfrlive.com/chat, you can see it as well. But
It
they're
looks
just
like
these,
something out of a Monty Python skit or something, right?
yeah, or a Salvador Dali. Is that the
Yeah.
the artist that did weird pictures? Yeah, it looks like some strange thing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they are, but they just apparently were this ancient race of beings that used to be at least present in the ancient world, but somehow just kind of.
Oh, that is horrific. That is horrific looking.
That's exactly the image that I used in one of our promotions of them when I did the show, but way back when. And I don't remember what the claims were. I think we just talked about the idea that there was these different races of people. And I think in that same show, I'd also talked about the cynocephaly, or the dog-headed people. So it's these ancient references to these different races of humanoid beings were apparently a part of our ancient world.
Exactly. You know, it's like
That's
like our buddy Joe
monstrous,
said.
Scott. That's not
It
right.
is. Well, I mean, look, I would say, you know, this is in the same realm of like the Cyclops and all of that, you know, the Griffin and all of these sort of these weird creatures that you hear talked about in, you know, like ancient mythologies, right? Greek mythologies, Roman mythologies, all of that stuff. It, you know, like I said, it's like, you know, it's like Joe Joseph said, it literally was like Lord of the Rings at one point on this planet, and there were many different entities that were all sort of, I guess you could say, coexisting. I mean, I don't know how much coexistence was going on, because it seems like there probably was a lot of conflict maybe between a lot of these different entities, but there definitely was a point, you know, in history on this planet where things were really crazy, things were really weird, and there was a lot of different things kind of existing at the same point in time. And I don't know, man, that would have been crazy to witness or have something like that come up to you.
I think
You know,
I could recreate that. Bam over in the TFR chat room said, it looks like a bad bodybuilder. That's what I would look like if I tried lifting one of the weights and the weight just dropped clean on my head. Like somebody forces your face down into your torso. That's basically the best way to describe what we're looking at here, Nacy.
Strategically, if you think about it, if we adverse of cryptos.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you think about a dog and you think about its pack and hunting ability, it reminds me of that book by Dean Koontz, The Watchers, which was made into a movie also, where there was a genetically humanoid that was spliced with a dog,
Mhm.
and it would hunt the dog. Well, spoiler, but it's like a 25-year-old movie. But
It's probably okay.
right, so it was like a dog man creature
Mhm.
that was used in the military. It was militarized, so it could technically be a chimera, and it was used for hunting. You know, the dog would put the scent on something, and then it would hunt and kill the dog and whatever was around it. You know, so when Brent, because you've shared, there was one gal you used to have on where she was talking about like Bigfoot and dogman occurrences, and there was some really strange military,
Yeah.
showing up.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Shell Dion. Yeah.
Yes.
Don has made it, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Longbeard.
Hey, Mr. Longbeard in the house. Nice.
Oh, be still my heart.
Loving
jeez.
it, loving it. We did get we kind of got fixed on YouTube, guys. For the people at home watching YouTube, my YouTube OCD will be satisfied in a moment when I get all of this resized and recameraed up. But yes, we got there. We got there in the end. We had no volume at one point. I tell you, Don, it's as if the stream knew that you were getting ready to enter the mix. Technical issues
Probably
are.
did.
But for tonight, you've got a new name. You are no longer Don Longbeard. You're Lonnie Dongbeard.
Oh, jeez.
There you go.
All right.
There you go. It is what it is, dude. I think it might catch on. Probably not. Probably shouldn't.
Hopefully
but
not.
Hopefully not. How you been doing, man?
Been doing good. Busy as always. But, I'm here. Well, I'll make the second 2 hours.
That's what I like to hear, dude. That's what I like to hear. So, guys, where do you want to go for the last 10 minutes of Freaky?
Well, I want to kind of touch upon, we talked about that Blemmy thing, and then like the weird chimera type creatures all talked about throughout history. Maybe we're going to start repeating that. History tends to repeat itself, or there's echoes of history. And now, we're at a point in human history where we're starting to toy with genetic manipulation once again, and all of that. And Naysay brought up the point of kind of the militarization of this kind of stuff, and then that kind of makes you start wondering about like super soldier programs and things of that nature. And are they going to start tweaking genetics, and saying, oh, we want our special forces to be able to see in the night without having to use bulky night vision goggles. So let's put a little bit of cat DNA in them or something like that, so that we can boost their vision, 6 times in the night, or tweak this and tweak that. And are we going to start reaching a point to where all of a sudden we start seeing a reemergence of these chimera type of individuals that start popping back up?
It'd be kind of cool if it gets like
wonder.
X-Men. That'd be awesome, man.
I would take owl eyes.
Yeah, I'd take an owl head, your head on a swivel type thing. I think that'd be a kind of good thing. Yeah.
So I mean, it is an interesting thing to think about. At one point maybe there was genetic manipulation going on, creating all these things, and then that kind of died out, and now we're at a point to where humanity, or we're going through that cycle again, or reaching that pinnacle of civilization to where we're going to start doing that again. And you have like the transhumanists and stuff out there that want to merge with machines and augment their body with different cybernetics and stuff like that. And then you have this burgeoning genetic technology, CRISPR kits, and people can now toy with genetics in their garage, right? If they have they can buy a CRISPR kit and tinker around with things. So I mean, it's crazy to think of. They can, there's actually a movement of people out there called I think like gene hackers and stuff.
Biohackers.
Biohackers, yeah. I mean, it's a thing that we're at now. It's wild to think about. And so, you know, you have the transhumanists that want to do this with technology, or, you know, with like physical technology. But you also have the segment that are they going to want to augment themselves genetically? You know, oh, I want the abilities of this animal, so I'm going to cross myself with it or something. We're going to be entering a strange future, I think. The farther we go with this stuff,
like a Marvel movie, definitely like a Marvel movie, man. Yes, indeed. So Brent, before we wrap up here, for the YouTube audience and things, give people the channel name in case they haven't found the link that I've pinned in the chat room. Where do people need to go after the break?
Okay, so those of you on YouTube, you'll need to go to youtube.com/paranormal portal. And that'll be where the new continuation of this amazing adventure will be.
Yes, indeedy. So, Nacy, any more questions for Brent on the paranormal before we become the special guest, dude? Are you excited? I'm glad you're laughing, Don. I'm glad you're laughing.
We could talk. We can talk for hours, and I'm having a hard time because now I have my quadruple man crush challenge with Kev Baker and Brent Thomas and Scotty and Donnie Longbeard.
Why do I get that special little softness in his voice?
That beard. I'm blind and I can see how remarkable that beard is.
Full beard, yeah.
Oh my.
I think I want to go get everything finalized and set up before the beginning of the show, so I'm actually ready for the show. So I got to go start winding up the portal mechanism.
Alrighty, sounds like
indeed, I will kick you out of this call, sir. How does that sound? Because that's what Skype's going to tell everyone anyway, that I've kicked you out, right?
All right, we'll see you in just a few minutes, gentlemen.
See you soon, dude.
All right, see you then.
All right.
And he's gone, just like that. Just like that. Sorry, I got distracted there, ladies and gents. I got distracted. Yeah. Sasha Banks was on the telly. What can I say? Anyone that knows the wrestling, you'll know what I'm talking about. Wah, wah, wee, wah. Indeedy, Mr. Scott, indeedy. Toxic
Mr.
Kev.
Baker,
Toxic Kev is a hell of a man. A hell of a man.
You are a very easily distracted individual, aren't you?
And I will share my screen with you, Scott. Bear with me momentarily, and I'll.
No problem. As I stated earlier, how can we pay attention when distraction comes for free?
Oh man, you've got distractions and the powers that be on the brain. They say. Here's my top tip. Anything's a distraction. Just plug yourself into the moon like me, although I've probably triggered you by saying moon.
Moon!
Exactly, the moon. The moon. You know why it's called the moon? It's called the moon because it's inhabited by space cows on the far side. And that's why they say moo, because they're actually paying homage to the moon. Don't look at me like that, Scott. It's actually one of the world's most pointless websites. There you go. I was on it one day, and there's a gentleman somewhere that has a theory about cows coming from the moon.
And please move on over to the Paranormal Portal after tonight's show.
You know what?
Join us for another 2 hours.
You know what kind of got me like weird about that one? That weird, pointless website that I pulled up on a stream one day. It reminded me of the conversation that we jokingly had, Scott, where we said, I wonder what it is with the cows. They're always trying to get their DNA and things. And we wonder if, remember we laughed and joked that they were in charge of the planet. Remember?
Yeah.
We weren't even the first people. We weren't even the first people to have that idea. I felt robbed. You know?
Well, there was a Far Side cartoon or comic strip where one panel showed the cows like standing up and smoking cigarettes, and the road next to the field was empty, and then all of a sudden they're standing on all fours while a car is going by.
Ah.
So maybe when we're not looking, these animals are doing the absolute bizarre and just not letting us in on the secret.
Oh, they're pulling a Toy Story on us, where when we turn our back, or when we're not paying attention, then all of a sudden, like
Demonic toys.
Indeed, boys, indeed. What can I say? I'm liking this soundboard. I need to pump the volume. That's for when Nacy turns into the owl, yep.
Ooh. Ooh, I've seen the owl on the dollar bill.
Teddy bear here to play. If you don't come play with us, then we will kill you.
Whoa!
No.
Holy shamoly, that was creepy, right?
That was a beautiful introduction there of the children of the Kev.
Oh, wow, man. Are they like the ghost children of the HMS douche canoe that I find myself captaining on a daily basis?
that is definitely no bueno. No bueno whenever you hear that going on.
Well, wait, just one more
What
time, because
was-
that was really sinister, right? I'll pump the volume for this one. What do we need?
What was that one train?
To see the teddy bear here to play. If you don't come play with us, then we will kill you.
Whoa!
You know, I hear that, and then I have the mental image of a black-eyed child.
I'm going to incorporate that into our freaky intro. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you for being here.
end of hour number 3. Join us on the other side for the Paranormal Portal. We'll be there.
2 more
Will you?
hours.
We're out of here. Okay, right. So I will hang up on this stream here. Ladies and gentlemen, you absolute legends, all of you. The link that you need is up at the top of the chat room. Head on over, search for the Paranormal Portal. You will see we're going live over there. And, oh, I like that creepy singing. I think we'll let them take us out today. Ooh. Oh, I jumped.
Toodles.
Dude.
When we call to see